The Monterey International Pop Music Festival was a 3-day music event held in California during the Summer of Love in 1967. The brainchild of the Mamas and the Papas, it was designed to showcase new music that was coming out in the late 60s and show that rock and roll was here to stay as an art form. Up to an estimated 200,000 people saw the 31 acts who performed at Monterey. This is where the U.S. got introduced to Janis Joplin, Otis Redding, Jimi Hendrix, and The Who. It also featured performances by the Grateful Dead, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, the Mamas and the Papas, Ravi Shankar, Jefferson Airplane, the Steve Miller Band, and more. The tickets were less than $7. Almost all of the artists played for free, and all of the money was donated to charity. And there was plenty of LSD available for the bands and the crew. On this episode of Prisoners of Rock and Roll, we're going to San Francisco with flowers in our hair to talk about Monterey. Let's hit it. Yeah! What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Prisoners of Rock and Roll, episode 17. I am your host with the flower power, Bruce Kramer, and I'm here with my very, very groovy co-host, Ryan McCusker and Doug McCusker.
Peace and love, peace and love.
Are you rocking out there?
You guys look great, man, with the flowers around your hair.
This is like a natural thing for us.
The tie-dye looks awesome.
You know, we're definitely flowered children by heart. You know?
Awesome. I love that we've gone from, we talked about Slayer, we did Frank Sinatra, the Big Four, shock rock, and now this. So.
Hey, man, that's what we do. We got to keep it fresh.
Very diverse.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing that we will not talk about. But today, we're talking about one of the most important events in the history of rock and roll.
I think so.
Yeah, you think about all the bands that had their first American appearance there, you know?
Yeah, it was definitely for its first time of having any kind of festival besides the jazz festival that they had, like with Dylan went electric. This was like the first electric festival.
It's always going to be compared to Woodstock. Right?
Yeah.
But this is 2 years before Woodstock.
Well, they said this was like the inspiration for Woodstock.
Yeah.
You know, and like a couple other festivals that happened later after this. But this was like the first one of its kind. And they said this was the beginning of that Summer of Love idea, you know, even though like it's not 69 to 67. But they said this was the beginning of that Summer of Love feel.
Right a week before this, Sgt. Pepper came out.
Yeah.
So you had the beginning of that culture being popularized. Yeah, it was already happening in 64. That's when, you know, the first Kool-Aid acid test happened. Mm-hmm. So that culture was happening.
Yeah.
And then 67, that's when, I guess, along with the Mamas and the Papas, record producers and all these other guys got behind this festival to make it happen. You know, and it was one of a kind at the time.
Yeah, somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody did say, quoted that, you know, the Beatles set this up, like the idea of that, like, love thing. And everybody just kind of grasped onto that idea and just ran with the ball with it.
Well, in 64, the Dead was happening,
yeah.
Janis was happening, all those guys was happening. The Beatles just made it
popular
pop culture.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
here,
I guess
we're doing it too.
Yeah. But this is, in my opinion, that's the real thing. Like, the Beatles are real. But what the Dead were doing...
The original 64 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the way we're going to tackle this tonight is we're going to, we'll talk a little bit maybe about like how the festival came about. Like, I think it's kind of an interesting story. And then I think we're just going to kind of walk through maybe each, like, there's an afternoon and an evening set. And we'll just we'll set the stage. We'll say who performed, and then we'll talk about the stuff. We'll play some tunes, and then we'll see how this goes. And I started it in my notes by just like a whole entry on like why this event was so important, because it really does get overshadowed by Woodstock a lot. But you think about when the time this happened, like 67, like rock and roll is only 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and there's still a lot of people that think it's just like kind of this passing fad, like it's going to go away.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Like, rock and roll was only around for 10 years prior to this.
But think about like some of this stuff that we're going to play, and then compare it to the stuff like that we did on the Sun Records episode.
Yeah.
It's so different, man. Music has made this enormous jump.
That's a great point. I never did that timeline. It's only 10 years.
And a lot of these bands that play in this, like, they're not signed yet, or they're up and coming. And it's like, Woodstock kind of has like a commercial feel to it. There's there's some arguments around money around like who gets in the movie and stuff like that. With this, when they organize the festival, they make a really concerted effort to make sure that San Francisco hippie element is there.
I think all of the I think the Mamas and the Papas were out to exploit it. I mean, to exploit that whole hippie culture. It was happening. It was like a Renaissance fair happening in this festival. So it was like, okay, we're going to have the Mamas and the Papas play. We're going to have this guy Hendrix play that nobody knows. We're going to have the Big Brother play, and it's going to be the first of its kind.
And then it's funny they bring that up. Like, was Big Brother signed to a contract yet?
No,
they weren't.
No.
And then like Otis comes out, Otis Redding.
Nobody knew him.
And he just blows it away.
Yeah.
A couple I had a couple in my notes. Some of the bands that get signed. I mean, Hendrix was a UK thing. The Who had never played in the United States. Otis Redding was popular with the African American crowd in the South, but not to like white California, mainstream America.
So that's like the crossover for him.
Janis was unsigned. I mean, it's like there's a story that like Clyde Davis was like saw her and was like, I have to sign you right now.
That was like the first set, right? Yeah. The first Janis played 2 sets on the Monterey.
Yeah.
The first set that she played, Clyde was like, I'm signing this band.
And if you look at that performance, like she gives it her all.
That's the second performance. Actually,
the second performance.
She wouldn't sign a release to be filmed in the movie.
Okay,
and they were like, "We'll sign this, and we'll put you on again right before the Hendrix and all this other shit."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she was like sold.
Yeah.
So that's the video of her. That's the second time.
Performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Clyde Davis just signed her. Everything's happening. It's.
But I read something that she wanted to play Sunday also, and they wouldn't let her because she wasn't signed.
Well, by the time she got off that stage,
she was signed. Yeah,
and that's when she played with Sunday.
Yeah, was she?
And guess what? The Sunday was
the 18th.
Yes,
June 18th.
That's our birthday.
There you go. I got a couple of notes on Janis and why they played 2 parts. I guess we can get to them and their stage. Clive Davis said that Monterey was the creative turning point in his entire life, and that's a dude. I mean, he's been in the music industry for a zillion years.
Yeah, it was the first time he tripped balls.
It wasn't.
Yeah. And a little bit after Monterey, the suits start getting involved. Like all the records.
They smell the money.
They smell the money, and that kind of leads to Woodstock a little bit too. But the record labels aren't involved at this point, so you have all this like music that is all over the place with different influences. Like Ravi Shankar, the Beatles had that Eastern thing. The Beatles are almost like their own thing. Like you can't define them. But there's so much of this other types of music all blending together that then when the record labels get involved, they're like, well, this doesn't fit in a box. You got to have a defined sound.
Sure.
So, which I think it's also one of the reasons why like the record industry has struggled with the Grateful Dead for so long, because they're all over the place that they're not in like one genre.
I think a lot of this early rock and roll is blues influenced. You hear a lot of all these bands, they have such a blues vibe to it.
I got a little bit of notes on just like the history of the festival. Maybe we'll just kind of set the stage here, and then we can start jumping into like what happened. So the whole idea started with this dude named Alan Pariser, who was he was some like wealthy guy. His family owned like a paper manufacturing company, but he really wanted to be around musicians. So he sold weed on the side to kind of get involved in rock and roll. And he became friends with like Ringo, and he was hanging out with Stephen Stills and this jazz musician named Hughes Maskela, who winds up playing at Monterey, because I had no idea who this dude was.
I recognize his name.
And now I'm like, all right, now I know. So they're hanging out one day, and they're talking about the Monterey Jazz Festival, because this one guy is a jazz musician, and then they go like, hey man, it would be really cool if we had like a rock and roll one of these. And this guy Pariser knew John Phillips because he sold weed, so they went to John Phillips and the Mamas and the Papas and his manager Lou Adler, and they're like, "Hey man, we're going to do this one day event. We'll pay the Mamas and the Papas $5,000 if you headline it." And around the same time, they said the Mamas and the Papas were hanging out at Mama Cass's house with their manager, and McCartney was there, and they start talking about how rock and roll is being perceived. Again, it's 10 years old. It's kind of all grown up. But it's still kind of looked down upon. And so those two ideas, this guy saying, hey, Mamas and Papas, will you headline this? And then the Mamas and the Papas hanging out with McCartney and everything, turns into this idea of let's have this 3-day festival. Well, $5,000 is not a lot of money, so we'll get everybody to play for free.
Which is by itself, to have all these bands play for free is unbelievable.
Yeah,
but just trying to pull it off is a really ballsy idea. Like, was there like a rock and roll festival before this?
No. There was one like a week before.
That's right,
but it wasn't. But it was like
this on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and they threw this together in like 8 weeks, like the Mamas and the Papas, and they decided to have it at the same place as the Monterey Jazz Festival, like on purpose, to be like,
sure,
look, this is our legit art form.
I said a little earlier, the Newport Jazz Festival was an original festival, and I think they really, especially Dylan going electric at that jazz festival.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think that really influenced this coast, or the West Coast, to have their own festival.
Yeah. And so these guys, and they decided that, like, to give it some legitimacy, they came up with like this board of governors. It didn't do anything other than like you could use their names to get other artists. And I just wrote down the names that I knew. It was McCartney, Paul Simon, Donovan, Smokey Robinson, Roger McGuinn, Mick Jagger, and Brian Wilson.
I don't remember any of them being there.
Most of them weren't. And I do have something at the end of this on the bands who did not play at Monterey and why. And most of them are on this.
Yeah, well, the Beach Boys, we'll get into it later, but the Beach Boys one is kind of like mythical. Yeah. Like, this is why they didn't play.
Yeah, out of these, I mean, it's the Byrds were there.
Yeah.
Paul Simon was there. Brian Wilson, I said we'll get into him. Yeah, and everyone else was not.
Yeah.
And the tickets for this thing, man, were between $3 and $6.50.
That's outrageous.
And
is that for the whole weekend or per day?
I think the $3 was for the day. And $6.50 was like a seat in the front.
Yeah. Who's getting that money?
So, I looked up. I'm like, what? Well, the San Francisco acts wanted it to be completely free.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hippies, and I guess this was kind of and they're like, all right, well, we'll do this and we'll donate all the money to charity. Even in 2021 dollars. $6.50 is around $50. So imagine like going to this festival for 3 days for $50.
That's great.
It's nuts. And they also had this idea that like, all right, and then everything that we do is going to be like top shelf. They wanted it to be like the best equipment. They had like a medic tent. They had a bad trip teepee set up for people to trip.
But imagine that there was nothing like that before for them to come up with these ideas, especially like the bad trip tent. That's thinking outside the box.
The one thing that Monterey was more planned better. It was more organized.
Yeah.
Woodstock was just a fucking
it turned into a shit show.
Yeah.
And they make a big deal at Monterey because a lot of the musicians, when they weren't playing, they were just sitting in the crowd. But it was also kind of high class behind. I mean, they were showing those guys were eating lobster, and they had steak, and they had a room to jam in the back, and there was also a party going on.
Dude, it was a punch bowl laced with LSD.
Really?
There was this guy, the Grateful Dead sound guy. His name is Bear.
Yeah.
Oswald Stanley. He was a chemical chemist, and he made the acid that was made by Purple Haze.
That's right. I did read. Yeah,
Monterey Purple was especially made. He's the one who designed the Dancing Bear logos too, I believe.
Yeah. Is he the guy who put during the Dead show would have like their gels and people who will put like
that was just more of a culture thing. But he's the guy that made the Wall of Sound.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But he was a very big piece of Monterey because he was just handing this acid out. It was called Monterey Purple, and man, I wish I had some because it looked like everybody was having a great time.
Yeah.
It looked like everybody was vibing. I mean, everybody was sitting down, everybody enjoying themselves.
So you just said it looked like it was a great time, and you know that because there's a documentary about this.
Yeah.
So they also had the forward thinking to say, hey man, let's videotape all this. And they hired this guy, D.A. Pennybaker, who was a music documentary filmmaker. And the initial plan was that they were going to air this on TV. And the guy shot all this footage, and when they showed some of the footage, specifically of Hendrix, to the TV network, the network guy was like, not on my network, dude. So they became this movie. But
they had a hard time getting everybody signed the contract for the movie. You know what they would do? Right before you hit the stage, they was like, oh, sign this, and you're going to be in our movie. And Janis and the Dead, and we're like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not signing. You're exploiting us.
I forget what some artists did that in the Woodstock movie also.
Yeah, the Grateful Dead did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, I didn't know that, like, they would have people signing, and a lot of people wouldn't sign off on that. But that makes you question: did they have the idea that this is going to be like a big movie
like
thing,
something to remember?
Yeah. Was the movie as big as the Woodstock movie? Because the Woodstock movie, that's the only way they made made money off of Woodstock,
the soundtrack,
off the soundtrack in the movie. Was that the same deal with this?
I read that the charity that they created for this still to this day raises tens of thousands of dollars off of the intellectual property from Monterey.
That's great.
So it's got to be what that's from.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it was on the film was on HBO Max. I watched it this week.
Yeah.
So it's there's got to be streaming rights to it and all this other stuff. And then there was I guess a couple years later they did start coming out with like you can get the Hendrix the whole performance or the Otis Redding whole performance, and there's a box set that has a whole bunch of other stuff in it.
I would love to get that box set. The one that they have on Spotify is real lame.
Yeah,
like it really sucks. I was like, but the box set that I saw on Amazon, that looks unbelievable.
Yeah. You guys want to start talking about the acts?
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So, and I kind of looked at this too. As every time I made some notes, I tried thinking about like what's in the documentary and what happened at the other part of the show. So we'll be coming back to that. So I think we're going to do this by just each part of the show, and we'll just list the artists, and then we'll talk about whoever we want to. So Friday night, the opening night. Here's the list who played: The Association, The Paupers, Lou Rawls, Beverly, Johnny Rivers, The Animals, and Simon and Garfunkel.
Lou Rawls, dude, he's a great blues guy, man.
I was listening to some of him before.
He's one of the besides Otis, he's one of the only black guys to play Monterey.
Yeah,
no Motown acts were there. Like Barry Gordy was like, none of you guys are going to this Monterey,
which is
interesting. Paid,
which is interesting because Smokey's on the board of directors too.
Yeah,
and Barry Gordy and Smokey was ready to go. He wanted to come and perform, and they wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
I wrote for this, like, I think the first night, for as famous as this festival is, the first night is rather underwhelming. Like the Association, and I watched there was a documentary that was on VH1 about the 40-year anniversary of this.
Yeah.
And they were talking about somebody with the Association, and they were like, that's the music that all this counterculture is, like, going against. Like, you rolled out kind of the squares to open this.
Well, fortunately, it takes squares to make big things happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we've all been to festivals and shows. Always that first day you have, like, the warm-up to the second day, to the third day,
they had the Animals play.
And out of that whole list, that's the one band that I liked out of everybody you just mentioned that played that first day.
Yeah, because they were just a garage band. And they came out and did this psychedelic show.
They, like, completely redefined themselves in this. They were kind of like they were older at this point. Like, they were one in that first British invasion. I guess he had seen Hendrix in London and saw kind of where the music tide was turning. And they really, like, redefined themselves. The Animals are a great band.
They're a great band. Yeah.
They were a garage band, and they went psychedelic for this show.
Yeah.
You see the lead singer of the Animals. He comes out, and he has, like, psychedelic paint on his face. He's got war paint. He's like really sneaking around on stage. He's definitely tripping.
Yeah, but they're evolving into what the time has become.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
They were, like I said, the Animals is a great garage band.
They're just a great band altogether.
Yeah, but for them to play Monterey is happening.
Yeah, he said he saw Hendrix, and then he spent a lot of time hanging out in California. He was in the Haight-Ashbury district, dropping some acid and really let's play a little bit of So they covered "Painted Black," and it was kind of like a tribute to the Stones because the Stones aren't here.
No colors in my life, they're turning black. I see people walking by, dressed in their colorful clothes. I see them strolling by, my happiness flows. No more will my gray seagull turn a deeper blue. I could not foresee this thing happening to you.
His voice just works with that. It's a completely different sound for them, but it works.
I love the arrangement. Even like when the band kicks in, like dun dun dun, they do a great job of painting a picture of what they're doing musicianly wise. Like it's really good.
Yeah.
Like
they were totally being something different. They were trying something different. They were dressing different. The whole culture was there.
They're evolving.
Yeah. He's wearing one of those like Baja blanket kind of poncho looking things in the show, and he said he's all like painted up.
Yeah.
And just it
I thought
was cool.
I thought they had one of the better performances.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah.
good.
Maybe because they were like early in the weekend, and
Sure.
they were like, "All right, we could play, and then we could party our asses off."
If me and you played, I'm like, let's play the first day and enjoy
Yeah.
ourselves. But like, this guy totally got lost in the '60s. You say people, I got lost in the '60s. They totally got lost in the
Yeah.
'60s,
Yeah.
and just from that version of that song, of that intro, and the intro is really long, and
it's
great.
It was, the times.
Yeah.
People were sitting there-
experimenting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that they took that risk and tried to do something completely different. And I think a lot of music critics said that they like redefined themselves. They reinvented themselves. Like when they walked off that stage, they were a completely different band.
And that's why they might have played this hippie festival because of that. And like back then, everybody covered everybody's song, so that was like a regular part of concerts and like recording.
Sure. I'm sure Brian Jones was so happy. They were
Sure.
playing.
Yeah.
And everybody, it was just like everybody was bowing down to Brian all weekend.
Yeah.
He had a great time.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Brian Jones is, he is the guitar player for the Rolling Stones. He put the Rolling Stones together, and then they threw him out of the Rolling Stones.
He was a mess. Like you said, I'm sure he had a great time. Like, the Stones were probably like a big deal to all these bands. They kind of started this whole, like with the Beatles, of course. But
I saw an interview with Sammy Hagar, who said he was there. He was there.
He hitchhiked
And
there.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he was
That's
in the
great.
Haight-Ashbury and he was getting high, and then they just kind of hopped on a bus and went and checked it out. But he said they saw Brian Jones
they were
walking,
like,
and he was like, "Holy crap, that's Brian Jones!" And they kind of like just followed him around to see if they could like be in his aura.
I never heard that story.
That's great. There's a thing on YouTube that VH1 made. Mm-hmm. It was like a 45-minute documentary.
It was good. It was like for the 40th anniversary of Monterey. Cool. One other big artist who played on Friday night, which they had a really odd performance, was Simon and Garfunkel.
But like Simon and Garfunkel, like I know they did "Sound of Silence" there, and that song was still pretty new at the time, and that song defined of how great songwriters and performers that they are. It's flawless.
There's a lot of great songs that they play on that show.
Yeah, but that specific one, I know, is one of their most popular songs. Mm-hmm. But they really show why they are remembered so long and loved for so long.
It's such a dark song.
I love it.
It would be like, oh, this is a bad vibe. Play something.
With everybody tripping, with everybody on the LSD.
I forgot what I put on the playlist, but they played that song.
Yeah, you've got Homeward Bound and 59th Street Bridge song. Well, so this is a weird performance to me, because if you look at the video, they have like all this weird red lighting on them. It's like this devilish. It's really odd, man. Go look it up on YouTube. It's because the light guy did some of the Monterey Purple.
Sure.
And he was tripping his ass off.
I was
and put the wrong lights on. Simon and Garfunkel.
I was just going to say, maybe he realized Art Garfunkel was a devil. And he wanted to shine a light on him.
So just as you listen to this very groovy, summer of love kind of feeling song, they're in this Church of Satan red light bathing them when they're playing. It was really weird.
Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the morning last. Just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy. La-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy.
Up until recently, I started getting more appreciation for Simon and Garfunkel. I think a lot had to do with it. I think Rock and Roll Archaeology did a show on Simon and Garfunkel, and that really got me more interested in them. I guess it was just I had to grow up a little bit to really appreciate them. But they were great.
I think they said that they were like one of the last performers of that night, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what represented nicely for the first day, was a lot of like acoustic acts going on.
Yeah, even though they're a New York act,
They fit in right
Yeah,
away.
right. That's a California vibe that you get out of that song.
Yeah.
You said like letting the music do the talking, setting the stage. That song does a great job.
But I think that band kind of set up that sound that was coming. That was really popular
Yeah.
at that time. So I think it's very fitting for them to be there.
They were like they were beatniks.
Yeah, exactly.
Before there was the hippies, they were the beatniks.
Yeah.
And they were the beatniks hanging out in New York City with
Yeah.
Dylan.
Yeah.
Being the folk rock.
Yeah. So they fit really into that California feel, you know.
Yeah, it's a great
they're
close
feeling
of the
groovy.
first night.
Because they're feeling groovy.
Yeah.
So then Saturday afternoon gets a little bit more bluesy. So here's the list that played Saturday afternoon, and this is an order in which they perform. So it's Canned Heat, Janis Joplin, Big Brother and the Holding Company, Country Joe and the Fish, Al Cooper, the Butterfield Blues Band, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Steve Miller Band, and the Electric Flag. So you got some there's some blues guys, there's some psychedelic acts, and the San Francisco sound is here too.
It sounds like each day had like a different feel to it.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, like this Saturday is like that blues feel. Like all those bands, they were all great bands in my book that you all just played, that you just mentioned anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great bands. There was a lot of great bands that day. I keep on going back to Lou Rawls, but I think he was what rock and roll truly was blues. And a lot of these bands were blues influenced.
And that's so cool. Like, you know, you're talking 10 years into rock and roll, and this music's still there. You know, when you have the change, but this is still there, and people loved it.
Can you play Tobacco Road?
Yeah, by
Lou Rawls.
Lou Rawls, yeah.
I grew up in a rusty shack. All I owned was a hanging on my back. God knows how I loathe this place called Tobacco Road, but it's home, yeah.
I'm glad you just suggested we play that because I don't know anything about his music other than that one song that You'll Never Know song, that poppy song. I didn't know he was more of like a blues guy.
Only knew what Lou Rawls was on the PBS specials. Sure. You know, he wasn't on MTV.
Yeah.
You know, our generation totally jumped over him.
But like, listen to that. You know, Janis is going to play that day, and she's probably fucking loving being there. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like she's probably fucking on the side of the stage. You know.
Oh yeah, Janis was. We could talk about Janis.
Yeah, maybe like real quick before we get into that, Canned Heat, when they played in the morning, I never understood how they were never a bigger band.
You said that earlier this week. I listened to that song. I listened to Can Heat, Rolling and Tumbling.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
Play a little bit of that.
Yeah, I got a little bit of this from Monterey.
They played this at Monterey.
I think it's important to get kind of the live feeling here. They're great, man.
They're great,
I always enjoyed them, and I never understood how they weren't more popular.
Yeah, that's a great song. They have a great blues sound. Who was also on that day was Johnny Rivers. Do you know who Johnny Rivers is?
Not at the top of my head. I know who Johnny Winter is, but
No,
not
Johnny Rivers.
No.
He sang Secret Agent Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that song's
so
great.
that was like
Yeah.
total like flower power time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. If,
That was a big show.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a big song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the song was before the TV show.
Yeah. Wow. That's a fun song. We just
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
that song in the quarantine to play. That's a fun
He
song
played
to play.
it that. He played it that day too.
At Monterey?
Yeah,
That's
Huh.
great.
Oop.
Yeah, and it didn't make it into the documentary. So.
Secret Agent Man.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So then the next person that comes in after Canned Heat, man, is Janis.
Yeah.
And the story I read of why she wasn't in the video was that her manager was like, "You're not making any money. We're not signing this because we're already playing for free." And she goes out and they just absolutely crushes
Destroys it.
And when she walked off the set, then she found out that her manager didn't sign the release, and she started crying.
Sure.
And she was crushed. So then John Phillip, they were like, all right, we'll let you play Sunday, and if you sign everything.
Yeah.
So it was like,
That's it. That's
she wanted to
interesting.
be in
Yeah.
it. But
Because this is the jump off for her career.
It was.
You know?
In the audience was Clive Davis. And just seeing her on stage, he's like, I got to sign this band. They had the Big Brother had a little record contract, but it was like a local kind of
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
Obviously, Clive Davis is a huge record mongol. He was there. He felt like Square.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He felt like a total Square.
He's the money.
He said he goes there and he has like he has like a sweater tied around his neck, and here's all these hippies, and he like totally sticks out like a sore thumb. So, but Janis comes on and he gets blown away.
And you think about that, and like where Janis has come from. This is the performance of her life.
She kicks ass.
Nobody. I watch this performance, or again, the second performance, and it just seems like nothing exists except for her. Like, you know, she just brings it and just.
I had the exact same. I had a similar experience watching it,
and it's just like this is the beginning of like. Of course, she was brilliant. Like she's always been brilliant, but now the rest of the world finds out how brilliant she is.
Play Ball and Chain on there. This is a live version from Winterland.
Here you go on the day I wanted to love you, I just wanted to hold you. I said for so long, yeah, all right, hey.
we only play 30 seconds of songs on this show because of lawyers and stuff. But man, dude, I could play that whole 10-minute.
Sure,
that 10-minute thing, man. That blows me away as much as any other piece of music I've ever heard.
They were so unknown at that time. To Clive Davis, she was unsigned material. Nobody's here watching her. And it was like, holy shit, I'm signing this woman right away. Or he signed the band. Because Janis wouldn't be signed without the...
Sure, but that's one thing I want to get into. I don't think Big Brother Holder Company get the recognition as an amazing band that they are.
Yeah, you just heard it there.
Like... They're just
they tore it up. They were a great blues band.
Yeah, because I think because her solo album, like Pearl, came out after she died, and that just went crazy.
Me and Bobby McGee was huge.
Yeah.
But what a great! I just a couple months ago, I was listening to Janis and Big Brother and Holding Company, and I was just like, "Holy shit, this band is great!"
I think I think we had such an awful experience with Janis Joplin through McCuskers.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have this customer. Yeah. Her name was Ivy, and she was a maniac. And she would play Janis Joplin and sing and scream on the top of her lungs, like obviously
like 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
2 o'clock
on a Saturday.
She'd be sitting in front of the jukebox
with no shoes on.
I wouldn't turn the jukebox up any louder because it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You know what the fuck, and. She's smoking her cigarettes. She's throwing them on the floor. She's
class act.
Well,
I guess whatever.
It ruined Janis for us.
No, absolutely. There's quite a few bands.
Like 10 years had to go by.
Like like the Mamas and the Papas are in there with the same thing. This bar ruined those bands for me. But this woman was just like Janis. I thought she was Janis.
I think all women are Janis at a certain point. They have that Janis side to her
when they're drinking, or
when they're drinking.
Okay, right.
Janis was obviously a bad drunk, but before she got signed, before she was a rock star, she would hang out with the boys. Like she was in the boys' club. She would swear a lot.
Yeah,
she would spit a lot, and she would drink a lot.
Yeah, I read before when she was in the band with those guys, like she was just like in that band. Like this was her band. Yeah. This was it.
Yeah.
I've never heard another singer that has a voice that's even close to that.
That's why she's iconic. Like,
just amazing.
Yeah.
And that's just a performance that just punches you in the face. I was like, man, I could sit out in my backyard with a fire going, turning that up really, really loud, man. I watched the whole, and we're talking about Saturday. The video in the documentary is from Sunday, but I watched it in the documentary and then I rewound it and watched it again, in a row. I was like, man, this is amazing.
She was definitely better at Monterey than she was at Woodstock.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But it's funny. She didn't recreate the wheel. She just did it the best, in my opinion.
No, there
for
was
blues
other
women
bands
singing, like
Yeah.
for women blues singers.
Yeah.
she just did it the best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
and she was white.
Yeah, and she was marketable, and
She was white as white. as
She's white, but she's one of those artists like you hear the voice and then you
Crossover,
see her
yeah.
and you're like, what? Like that
Yeah.
like there's a handful of artists like that. You hear them and then they don't like we talked about
Especially in 65.
Right.
When does this happen?
67.
Okay, 67.
67.
But with her growing up, she got made fun of a lot. She does that. She was absolutely like she
Yeah.
was an artist before.
Yeah, she was really
yeah,
picked
she-
on
and then she actually went back with a fur coat and a Rolls Royce. And,
Yeah, they treated her like shit.
Yeah.
And then she's like, here I am.
Yeah, she kind of
Yeah.
she had a really sad existence.
She
and
did.
I don't know. Like, did you guys hear the story that Clive Davis? Like, she said, "I
Yeah.
won't sign the contract unless you have sex with me."
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I believe that.
It came out of Clive Davis's mouth.
I
Did it?
know. This
Yeah.
is why I don't believe it.
Did he do it?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Like,
I think Clive is. I don't know. I don't think he's a fibber.
yeah. I don't know.
And to know like what kind of woman Janis was, I totally see that.
His book, he did a really good job of making every single artist about him, and
Oh, come on.
every.
Did you read his book?
Yeah,
I
every
always wanted
success
to.
was his.
But
fault.
that was my like before I said what Clive Davis because he took credit for everybody.
Yeah.
Do you think he deserves it? Do you think he just has his own ego and
He's done an amazing. I mean, the
Yeah.
influence he's had on music
Yeah.
is amazing. It just his book just seemed like every success was as a result of him, and every failure was not his fault.
Well,
it was
I
somebody
feel
else.
that he gave the opportunity to a lot of these acts, and he had the biggest,
Sure.
the biggest.
I mean,
the deepest pockets to make that happen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say he wasn't the only record guy there. That
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody got signed at Monterey.
Yeah, like the Steve Miller Band, like they didn't have a record deal, or
Yeah.
they got signed right out of this too, and they're not in the movie. They just kind of did their thing, and I had to even look up what the hell they played because I'm like, they didn't have any record.
How long were they together when they did this?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it
can
was
find out.
67.
Yeah, so
They had to be around for a couple years before that.
yeah,
Takes a
for
couple
them to
years.
play. Yeah, they get that good.
They played "Living in the USA." That was the only. They only played 3 songs. They played "Living in USA," "Mercury Blues," which was a cover, and a song called "Super Shuffle" that I didn't know. Another thing, man, it was really interesting at the Janis thing was, and this is kind of like some of the liberties that the documentary takes, because if you watch the video of her playing, there's a part where they go back to the crowd, and Mama Cass is sitting in the crowd, and her jaw is
Yeah,
just
sure.
open, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
one point she just goes like, "Oh wow,"
Yeah,
like just blew her away.
Yeah.
I wonder, Mama Cass, because the Mamas and the Papas were together for a while, and then here you have this unknown woman who just comes out and blows you off the stage, like that story of Jimi Hendrix going to England.
They intimidated.
Yeah.
She intimidated every
Yeah.
woman singer.
Yeah.
She dominated
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, like when Hendrix went to England, and
He dominated every guitar player in his way.
and Eric Clapton said, "Well, we're all out of a job," or
Yeah.
Pete Townsend or somebody,
Yeah.
or it was
Yeah.
But it had to be the same feeling,
Yeah, but Janis, she was awesome.
There's nobody's going to be as good as she is.
No,
Yeah.
everybody's tried. Like people
Yeah.
girls like Melissa Etheridge, they try to be the Janis ripoff.
Yeah.
But they're always just going to be one Janis.
Nobody has ever come close with that voice. I've never
Well-
heard another person like that.
Yeah, it's all that Jack Daniels she drank.
Yeah.
Yeah, Southern Comfort.
Yeah. Steve Miller Band formed in 1966.
Okay.
So they'd
So
been
they've
around for a year, and then they got signed. One other band that played on this that I don't know a lot about was Country Joe and the Fish. You guys listen to them at all?
Besides them doing the Woodstock,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about
Yeah.
them.
They were like a really... and I put that in my notes, too. Like, I don't know much about them, but I knew that they played both. They're only in the movie for like a minute, like a little bit, but apparently they were like a really political psychedelic band.
Sure.
And they just kind of been lost to history. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know about all that because they were a big movement of course, in the Woodstock movie. Not so much this one, but like Country Joe McDonald, like he was like a big activist. And
Was he?
Yeah, I don't think that
Is he the guy? Is he the guy? Say 1, 2. What are we fighting for?
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
we don't give a damn.
I believe so.
We're
Really?
going to Vietnam. I don't know. I don't know. That's him. But I think I put a song on there.
You did. Not So Sweet Martha Lorraine. Yeah, I'll play. Let's play a little bit of it.
She hides in an attic concealed on a shelf. behind volumes of literature based on herself. And runs across the pages like some tiny...
But yeah, I agree with you. They kind of got lost in the time, you know.
They were forgettable.
You're absolutely
Besides
right.
being in Woodstock.
There were a million bands that were doing exactly what they were doing. You know, I'm not taking anything away from them. They were there, man. But yeah, they were forgettable.
Yeah, just kind of fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
So
they got lucky. They got lucky a couple times to play these things.
Yeah, they're in the right place at the right
totally.
time.
Yeah,
and maybe their activism is a reason that they get picked as well.
Yeah.
So I guess Saturday afternoon wraps up, and then I guess they take a break before they pick up, and they have another set for Saturday night. And here's a list of musicians who played Saturday night: Moby Grape, Hugh Muscala, the Byrds, Laura Nyro, Jefferson Airplane, Booker T and the MGs, and then Otis Redding.
Wow, that's a hell of a Saturday night. Let's talk about the Byrds a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird. Like, the Byrds in Buffalo Springfield aren't in the documentary.
Yeah.
And they're like, I associate them with that California sound. I know that they're from L.A., and I think that the San Francisco people were kind of frowning on the Los Angeles scene at the time.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was weird. Like, I just see those two as classic California rock and roll bands from the late 60s.
I think they were the original ones.
Yeah.
But they probably saw, like, hey, this is a big thing that's happening. We should go play it. And who knows? They probably, like, all friendly and this and that. And, you know, the Byrds had, like, their pop songs and whatever. You know.
They have a great song that they played that day. It's called So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star.
Yeah.
Let's play a little bit of that.
Let's listen to it.
So you want to be a rock and roll star? Then listen now to what I say. Just get an electric guitar and take some time and learn how to play. And when your hair's combed right and your pants are tight, it's gonna be alright. Then it's time to go downtown where the age.
Yeah, Ryan, we were just playing this. You mentioned that, like, David Crosby's in this band. He was having a good time.
Oh,
So-
David Crosby always has a good
Right,
time.
David Crosby's been having a good time. You know, he's on his second liver and he's still having a good time.
Yeah, he's a strange guy in my book.
But first, you were saying, like, you know, during when we were listening, you're like, oh, like the Byrd, they had that classic California sound, like, you know, like the Beach Boys and this and that. But I think that sound was the popular sound until the late 60s really kicked in.
The harmonies.
Yeah.
And,
Like, that's like car commercial shit in my book.
I think
You
the
know what I
Byrds
mean?
were very radio friendly.
Yeah.
They did a great version of Mr. Tambourine Man.
Yeah.
I think their harmonies go great together. And everybody's noodling this guitar parts in there. I think the band was great. Crosby, you can totally hear him on top of everything.
But, like, music definitely evolved. Like, whatever, like, I understand you have your California Dreamin', Surfing USA sound, and then you have your Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin.
That's totally two different parts of California.
Absolutely. And it's like two different sides of the spectrum, but the same thing.
and I think a lot of the San Francisco bands thought that the Byrds were sellouts already because they were
Totally.
they were
I don't disagree with
commercial.
that.
They were commercially
Yeah,
successful.
Well, that's what I said. It sounds like a car commercial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, absolutely, you know.
I mean, look, they opened Saturday night.
Sure.
They were that big.
Yeah, that's true. You know, another artist that I thought was really interesting in here was Laura Nyro, and she's another. I don't know any of her music, but her story always was. I mean, she was only 20 years old. It was only the second time she's ever played live in her entire life, and when she got up on stage, she said she got like really, really nervous, and she swore that they booed her off the stage.
Oh, really?
And they said that she, for 30 years, she had been telling the story that I was booed off stage, and she hated her performance. And they said that, like, the guy that, in the late 90s, when they came out with that box set of all the other stuff, they actually found footage of her performance, and they're like, they weren't booing you, they were saying, that's beautiful. And
How funny is that? Yeah.
And the documentary guy, like Penny Baker, called her and told her, but she was in the hospital like dying of ovarian cancer.
Oh, that's awful.
And they told her like on her deathbed, like, dude, they weren't booing you, man. But they said like that was like this legend.
That's
that
awful.
Can you
she
imagine
was-
carrying that shit around
go-
with you your whole
Right.
life?
Probably
You know?
think about that every day.
Yeah, and they said that like she that was like that's always the story. Like she was the only person
That's a shame.
that was booed off the stage by all these hippies and all this love and power and flower power.
She was so young, though. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, she was probably so intimidated by everybody else there.
She was
you
so
know?
high. Probably.
Yeah, and it was her like it was a mistake. She
Yeah.
just heard
she
it
missed-
wrong.
yeah.
Yeah,
it'd be
it's a
like
shame.
Springsteen thinking they're booing him instead of yelling
Yeah,
Bruce.
Bruce.
You know, it's just
Yeah. But that's a shame. That's a real shame.
And they said she died very shortly after that of ovarian cancer.
Well, I'm glad
Just
she
like,
got to
yeah,
hear.
that she
I'm glad
heard
she got to
it.
hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, and that was even like in her obituary. They were talking about like she was allegedly booed off stage.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's a shame.
To just say that she played Monterey
Yeah.
I feel like
you know.
I feel like we should play some of her music.
Do it.
in memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I put a song on there.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you Surrey? Can you picnic? Whoa, can you Surrey? Can you picnic?
I don't know. I don't think it's like too much of a bummer. Really?
I think she sticks out like a sore thumb at this Monterey.
I think it's
She sounds like
Monterey,
a show,
yeah.
She
For
sounds like
Monterey,
a
yeah.
show tune.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's
Yeah.
probably doing like, you know, tripping with everybody. It's like, oh, you should go play this show with us.
Sounded like
you know?
Carole King.
A little
I was
bit.
gonna
I, thought,
say
yeah,
that.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
It sounds like a show tune.
Yeah,
I don't
didn't-
know.
I didn't dig it. Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah,
they were there.
They were the next band on the bill that night. What do you know about Airplane?
This I put on my notes. This is when they were a great band before they transformed into that garbage starship that produced "We
Yeah.
Built This City."
Yeah.
that I threw in the electric chair a little while ago. Man, Grace Slick had a great voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They totally bombed the show though.
They sucked. Yeah.
Was she all messed up?
They all were.
Yeah,
The
she-
whole weekend, Monterey wasn't that great of a music performance of that weekend.
Yeah, you guys were talking about,
Everybody
like,
kind of
yeah,
bombed.
yeah.
Except
I guess-
for like Hendrix and the Who.
Yeah.
I guess being messed up wasn't an excuse for this because everybody was
No, I mean,
Like with Jefferson Airplane, there's a lot of footage of that band
They're
being messed up
singing-
on the road.
Yeah.
they're
And,
singing like out of key.
Yeah.
They're just like one's singing like the harmony and one's totally off.
Yeah.
For Monterey.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was fucked up.
They were considered like the headliner, or they were considered one of the headliners.
Well,
They're, like the big
like,
acts.
they were the one bringing in the hippie culture.
Yeah.
They were the one that had radio hits like White Rabbit.
I was gonna ask you, was White Rabbit around
Oh,
when,
yeah.
this song, when,
Yeah.
when they,
They
played
were, like-
Monterey?
yeah,
This was
yeah.
a big song.
Yeah, play White Rabbit.
Yeah.
I love this song.
So they played White Rabbit and Somebody to Love at Monterey, but those songs aren't in the documentary either, which is weird.
but that's their two songs of their career, in my opinion.
Somebody
yeah,
dropped
they
the
were
ball.
they were huge.
Yeah.
They were huge hits, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. But yeah, White Rabbit's a fantastic song.
It's if I had to say a song that I like by them, it's them. I'm sorry, it's that song. Did you ever hear the recording of that with just her voice?
No, I'll check it
is
out though.
Fantastic. Yeah, she can bring it.
One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small. And the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And if you go chasing...
You know, I always had a funny thing. I hear that song and she said, I'm chasing rabbits. I think of Bugs Bunny.
Did you really?
Yeah, and what's up, Doc?
Whenever I really listen to that song, you know, again, you know, going back past episodes, I'm not the biggest Doors fans, but dude, the fucking Doors wish they could write a song that good.
It's
you
got
know?
like the drums has like almost like a military.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like an execution.
But by the
Yeah.
time the end of the end of the song,
It peaks.
Yeah.
dude, it's like chasing the rabbit, you know,
Yeah.
And it's
chasing
got-
the dragon, you
and
know?
it's got that like that psychedelic sound, but her voice is just so powerful.
By
too.
now, they're like rock stars.
Yeah, they're huge.
You know, that song is all over the radio. The hippie culture's getting big. You know, I think at that time, having women in a band was a big deal. Like Janis and the Big Brother.
Sure.
You had her in Airplane, and they had another singer, Marty. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the women's movement was really happening.
Yeah.
In
And the Mom
Monterey.
and Papas were really big.
Yeah,
you know,
the women's movement was happening.
The documentary too. There's when you mentioned the other singer, because there's one of the songs in the movie that Grace Slick isn't singing, and the other guy is, and she's just kind of mouthing the words, just going along. But the camera's on her the whole time.
Yeah.
So it looks like you see her
She
mouth
looked like
moving,
she's
but
singing.
it's not her.
The cameraman totally has a thing for her.
Yeah.
And just stares at her the whole time.
But she was also like, she was good looking.
Oh, yeah.
She had that amazing voice, and I think she just kind of like commanded the crowd when she was there. Like, there's Grace Slick with her band Jefferson Airplane.
you know,
They're hypnotized you.
yeah, I think she gets a little bit too much credit. Like, but that is a great song though. Like, they have some good tunes. But
Yeah, they are part of the San
absolutely.
Francisco sound.
Absolutely.
They made what hippies were. They were one of the originals.
Yeah.
and they made a lot of money.
So then, I guess the next artist to talk about is Otis Redding.
Wow.
This is my favorite live performance, I think, in the history of all music.
There's
him in Monterey.
There's a great album out of him with the Monterey.
Yeah, called Shake.
Yeah.
They finally released his whole set.
When we started discussing about doing this episode, and you said that on Mac, like Otis Redding, this is the greatest performance I've ever heard anybody do from anything.
Why don't you play Shake right off?
So Shake is also, like, that's his song. And I think it's really cool because he comes out. They said he walked out on the stage and he told the band, played in double time. Because it was Saturday night. Everyone's high. They've been partying all day. And he's like, I'm going to get him going.
Yeah.
So he has them play it extra fast.
Play it.
All right.
Everybody say it. Shake! Let me hear the whole crowd. Shake! Everybody say it. Shake! Let me smile. Shake! Early in the morning. Shake! Late in the evening. Shake! On midnight hour. Shake! When the time going down. Shake! Shake with the feeling. Shake! Shake with the feeling. Listen while I talk to you now. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do now. There's a new thing going around here. I'll tell you what, put me down now. You move your body all around and then shake. Oh, that's the way you do it now. Shake. Oh, go.
Ryan, I think you had a great point when we were just listening to this.
I said before Otis came on, Booker T and the MGs were the band playing, and they wind up being his backup band.
Yeah.
So what was happening? Airplane was over, and everybody got up and started leaving. So Otis looks at the band and is like, "Holy shit! Okay, double time. Let's do it up." And so you hear him on it. He's like, "Come on!"
Yeah.
Because people were leaving.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Otis just kicks ass. Like, he's into his performance. He's already doing the church's shit. You know, he was an amazing live actor.
Yeah.
Do you think he took part in the LSD and everything like that? Probably, most likely not. He probably sat around and look at these people.
I don't know, man. I don't know
doubt it.
much about his personal life.
But
You know,
I from listening to performances and
He
when you
had
guys
one of the
talk,
best.
Yeah, he did the best. So I would say people watched the whole time. Like, look at all
I don't know.
this.
Maybe he showed up later for a part. He definitely had
He's
one of
more
the better performances that night.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I would say no that he didn't.
Play another song that he played
All right,
that
yeah.
night.
How about what do you want to hear? You want to
Play-
hear Respect or I Can't Get No Satisfaction?
Play Respect.
All right.
What you want, honey, you got it. What you need, baby, you got it. All I'm asking for the respect when I get home. Hey, yeah, hey, hey, hey. Yeah, now.
Man, he just blows Aretha out of the water, in my opinion. His version is just.
I think it's a completely different song.
Yeah.
Oh, it is completely different.
Yeah.
The arrangement's different. Everything's different.
Her version's real bluesy.
Yeah, and her version becomes like the flagship song
it
for
is.
like women's rights.
Yeah.
And this is like, I just got home from work and I want you to give me some loving.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
I love Otis.
Yeah.
He was taken too soon from us, man.
A couple things that I noticed in this is one, he keeps calling the crowd, this is the love crowd, because he knows it's all the hippies and he's from like the South. So he's like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the love crowd. He's
He's
out
like-
of breath when he's talking
Yeah.
because he's been already going nuts.
People probably treating him like a person for the first time in his life.
Sure.
Yeah, like you said, he was from the South. Obviously, we don't have to talk about that, but he
Yeah.
was treated like an asshole his whole life.
And at the same time, he probably had to win over the crowd, like you guys were saying. Like, people were leaving after Jefferson Airplane, so he had something maybe to prove to himself, and he had to win over the crowd.
Yeah.
He really did. He really,
You know.
he did. He won them over and some.
and I think one of the things I like about him is he doesn't like when he sings. He lets his voice go over. Like he sings so hard that his voice like gets all like gravelly. Like he toes that line right between like yelling and singing because he's so into. Like you could just hear the passion that's coming out of him.
It's great
like
live performance. Yeah,
yeah, like that end of Try a Little Tenderness. We played that. That's like what is Jay-Z sampled for that song Otis.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, it's like going to church.
One of the best parts of ever recorded in rock and roll.
Yeah. And they said when he was trying to learn I Can't Get No Satisfaction, he had his one of his guitar guys was writing the lyrics down, and he was all like, "What is this?" And he said he took the paper and he like threw it across the room. He's like, "This is," but he still played it.
His version of Satisfaction is unbelievable. He even peps that song up. Like he really was. He was. Nobody was like him. Everybody tried to copy him for the last 50 years.
Yeah. You're right.
But nobody was like Otis.
You want to play a second of that?
Play Satisfaction.
All right.
Jump again! Here we go! I can't get no satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction. I done tried.
Do you think Brian Jones walk around? I wrote that shit.
Brian Jones was loving this weekend
Because everybody's covering his songs. Yeah,
everybody was covering his songs. Everybody's following him around. He was like royalty. He's walking around like a king.
and like Brian Jones, he probably never even thought of an arrangement the way that Otis did it. It like probably blew his mind.
I don't think I think you have to be from the South,
Yeah.
and to be from where Otis came from to make music like that.
Yeah, that's like a black church thing to me.
Sure.
It's like his music,
That
man.
probably
Just like
I hope Brian got to hear it.
And Otis, like, I read that he wrote "Sitting in the Dock of the Bay" like right after the festival. That was kind of his like when he says like I want to go home from my home in Georgia.
Yeah,
it's because he's thinking about going back from Monterey.
Oh, really?
And he died 6 months later in that plane crash.
But that's like if I ever have like a really hard day and I just need a minute, that's like one of the songs I put on.
Yeah,
he's
great,
man.
Taken
way too soon.
So a lot of the artists in this, Hendrix and Joplin and him. But I mean, and even you hear him. I put this in my notes. Like him and Janis, man, they are old souls.
Yeah,
you wouldn't know that he's 26.
He's in a category all by himself.
26 or 27. He's really young.
He had such a soulful voice.
Yeah.
If you go out and pick up his greatest hits, you'll see what I'm talking about.
He was 26 when he dies December 10th. Mm-hmm. So this is like 6 months later, and he was 26 years old. So he was 20. He was born in September, so he was 25 when he plays this. It's crazy.
I didn't realize he was that young.
Yeah.
You know what's really crazy? In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have a piece of this plane. And it says Otis Redding on it.
Really? Yeah. He like bought that. It was like his private jet. He finally had enough money that he bought it. And I think it was like the first or second time he ever took it out.
That's a shame.
Yeah, but they had like it says Otis Redding. They found it like in the water or something like that.
Wow.
It's heavy.
Wow.
And I seen it there one time with Ryan, and I saw it one other time years ago somewhere else, and I was like, man, that's kind of. Should they have that up here?
I don't think they should. I thought it was kind of bad taste.
Said that. Yeah, I remember you saying
that.
And
they had it in like a.
It was in a hallway.
It was like in a case, and then a few feet from it was Cliff Burton's bass.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense how it was laid out.
It's strange.
He was like, oh, here's a bunch of shit.
When I was there by myself, at one time, they had it by itself somewhere, like on the second level, but then they moved it down there, which I thought was really in bad taste. It has nothing to do with anything of that.
Tragedy.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Another talented guy we lose in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just died in a plane crash. Yeah. It wasn't. He didn't OD anything. It was just a freak accident.
Yeah,
much like the Buddy Holly. We talked about him a while ago too. Just a plane crash. So
rock and roll stars or music should not be traveling in small planes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far off topic with Monterey, but he was. He was the voice of like Stax Records.
Sure.
He was like they were ready to make like Memphis as they were going to overtake Motown.
Yeah, they had
and
a great chance.
It just derailed everything.
Yeah. Like Otis was like their Smokey.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and Stax definitely there's a different sound to it, like a a different soul sound to it.
Yeah,
It's more like
they
rock.
don't sound like those Motown.
Yeah, it's more like a rock and roll
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
Two separate things,
Yeah.
I think that's why Otis fit in with Monterey, because he was so rock and roll. When a lot of the Motown stuff is R&B,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like it's smoother.
Yeah.
You know, like the
Yeah.
Motown
It's a different.
stuff.
It's a completely different
Different
thing.
sound, yeah.
But he definitely like he definitely belonged there. You know, but at the same time, he did have to win over a crowd.
Yeah.
They're all walking out.
yeah,
And that's a great. Like if you got to go, if you're like he plays in the South,
I give
and
him,
he's
like-
got to introduce himself to like white America in the '60s. The hippies are probably a really good place to
they're
join,
probably
right?
really
Like,
good to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I mean. And Hendrix is there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Hendrix is like part of that culture.
Yeah.
But like Otis, like, you know, I give him a lot of credit for going to play that. Whoever told him to go play that was a genius.
It was definitely a different kind of music that was going on that weekend.
Yeah, it was going to be popular. Like, it was good music. That's why it was there.
Yeah.
But that took a lot of guts to go and play this festival. Nobody sounds anything like you, and that's a good thing.
Right, your
that's
type
a
of
good
music
thing.
is completely different
It
than
could go
everybody
either
else.
way, but it's a party, like Ryan was saying. Like the party's like
I feel like he
starting.
saw his opportunity.
Yeah.
He seized the moment. He saw maybe he saw airplane crash.
Yeah, he's
He's
like
no pun intended at all.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah.
saw
Jefferson
Jefferson
Airplane.
Airplane bomb.
Yeah.
Like,
And here we-
and
yeah.
he's like, "Here's my chance. Let
Yeah.
me go out there and rock."
and they're a successful band at the time, and he blew them off the
Oh, he
stage.
blew
Yeah.
everybody off. It was
Yeah.
like one of the most memorable performances that weekend.
Yeah, him and Janis.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
Hendrix,
Yeah.
Janis,
Just
The Who.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. So
All right.
I hate to say, but I think we're done with Otis Redding.
No.
So I think we'll be talking about him more on the show as we move forward with other episodes. So we're up to Sunday. Why don't we take a little
Yeah,
bit of a
man.
commercial break? We've got Sunday afternoon and Sunday night, and then we'll take it from there. We'll be back.
Yeah.
This episode of the Prisoners of Rock and Roll is brought to you by McCusker's Tavern, located at 17th and Shunk Streets in South Philadelphia. McCusker's Tavern has been in business for more than 50 years, making it the oldest bar west of Broad Street and a city known for its neighborhood watering holes. Minutes from the sports stadium, McCusker's is a great place to stop in for a few beers before or after a game or a concert. There's a reason why everyone from Philadelphia Magazine to Playboy have ranked it as one of the best dive bars in the city. Music is such an important part of McCusker's Tavern that we're actually recording this episode from there right now. They're currently closed due to the pandemic, but miss everyone and hope to see them soon. In the meantime, check them out on Facebook. That's McCusker's Tavern. All right, we're back from the commercial break. Thanks so much for sticking with us. So now we're up to Sunday, June 18th.
Happy birthday.
I have a long list of the people who performed on Sunday afternoon. Ravi Shankar.
Yes, Robbie.
That's it. He's the only one who played.
He played for like fucking 4 hours.
Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah. He's
His-
also the only... Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
He's the only musician in this whole thing. He got paid to play.
Yeah.
Because they said he when they started the initial idea where the musician were going to get played, he had a contract and he signed on right away to do it. And then when they decided to make it a charity, he was like, I have a contract. And so the Mamas and Papas, John Phillips agreed to honor that. So they paid him $3,000.
Well, you said McCartney had something to do with like putting this all together.
Yeah.
Do you think McCartney like, oh, well, you want?
I probably, because right, that's how the
Yeah.
sitar, right?
Yeah.
He taught George Harrison,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he was
like,
a rock
famous,
star.
yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a rock star.
Yeah.
I mean, in that culture, anyway.
He's associated with the Beatles, so
Yeah.
automatically, like,
Automatically.
I heard that he almost walked out of the festival too because he was offended by the Who and how they would smash
did
their
see that.
instruments, and he was gonna not perform,
It's
and
like-
they had to like really get him. I think one of the concessions was that they let him play for 3 hours.
I mean, he went on way before the Who. Oh, they're not going to smash their guitars. Don't worry about it. It ain't happening.
do you think he
this
felt
week.
like, oh, they're smashing these instruments that have souls in them, and like, you know,
Who
some
knows?
kind of like guru idea?
Yeah, I guess his vibe kind of it fits that whole hippie
Yeah.
thing. I thought with the documentary, man, it was like the documentary is like an hour and 20 minutes. He was on for a lot
Yeah.
in the documentary.
Like, you know, I don't want to say too much about. Could you imagine
No.
listening 3 hours?
Sounds
of that?
like hell.
Yeah.
Could you like
No.
imagine?
No.
By the end of his performance, he was really rocking out. I mean, he was really going after
Everybody
it.
was about it, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, for 3
Yeah.
hours sitting there, you're going to like it at some point.
Well, I don't know, man.
And a lot of the notes I have were about the movie because I said like it was interesting because I don't know how if he's on for 10 minutes of the movie, it did seem much longer than that. And I was watching. I had it on my computer while I was working the other day. My daughter came in. She was like, "What are you watching?"
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
But they show the beginning of it. Like they don't show him performing for quite a while in the video, but they show people sleeping. Yeah, like the crowd is doing all this. It's kind of like, all right, this dude's on. I'm just going to go hang out, take some more LSD, go check out what the vendors are doing and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's Sunday morning. The party was Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's walking in, and like you said, everybody's hungover on the LSD. And,
yeah. And this is probably the time where, okay, you're looking at the set list. You know all these bands that are coming in Sunday evening. This is like, all right, I'll get there when I can. I don't need to be there for the 3-hour set. I had some other really weird notes on here. It was like they kept showing the crowd a lot, and they showed one dude had a monkey. And I was like, how did the dude with I was like, is that guy related to Omar?
Yeah.
Because he looked like he was an Indian guy with a little monkey on his shoulder. I'm like, how'd that guy get into a concert with a monkey?
Dude, it was a hippie fest. People were just...
And then they show a lady sitting on a retaining wall playing a flute. And I was like, lady, don't ever bring your own instruments to a friggin' concert and decide you're going to play. I'm thinking of the Janis lady you were telling us about.
Lord.
I'm going to bring my own.
They're a dime a dozen.
And then some of the crowd stuff, too, was like they showed Hendrix at one point. He's sitting in the audience. He's really jamming. And at the end, when Ravi Shankar finishes, the whole crowd goes bonkers.
Because they probably all peaked at the same time.
They all stand up, but if you look at it really closely, Mickey Dolenz is in the audience, and he goes nuts. From the Monkees. He stands up and he's like, he's going crazy. And I was like, that's Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees.
He's got the love beads on. And
he's
everything
got the whole hippie outfit.
Yeah. The Monkees at Monterey.
Right. All kinds of monkeys.
Why did they play?
I don't know.
They would have been bananas. People would have been crazy.
They would have gone bananas for the Monkees.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I have them. I do. I have them in my. We'll get to them. I have them in my notes of artists who didn't show up and why. So, anything else we need to say about Ravi Shankar?
No.
Do you want to play?
Do you want to play? I can play some of his performance from that.
Can you play it where he tears it up?
Yeah.
He's 2 hours in.
Yeah, we're going to make everybody listen to 2 hours.
Imagine you're at Monterey. It's Sunday morning. You're hungover a little bit, and you walk into the festival and you hear this. If I was peeking, I'd be sat there for at least 45 minutes, and then I'd be like, all right, let's go look at T-shirts.
Dude, it's kind of like when you go to Dead Show, they have the Space Jam. Imagine 3 hours of that.
Right. When they're playing drums in space.
Dude. Did you ever see any of that?
Yeah.
Dude,
Jesus
imagine
Christ.
being at a show.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, I was like, all right, cool, man. It's a different type of music. I thought it was interesting to see how he was really he's got his eyes closed and his head's going back and forth. He was really tearing it up. His hands are moving really fast. It's also just not my. It's just not my style.
He's definitely
of music.
somewhere else.
It seems like it's a really difficult instrument to play.
Yeah.
It's not like maybe if you have guitar background, it'd be easier for you.
Yeah. Just not my style of music.
But at the same time, it was definitely a staple in the 60s, the sitar, with, of course, the Beatles and him and, the Stones did it,
Yeah. I think the Byrds had some songs. Published Springfield, one of those other bands had some. I
think people were really intrigued by that sound for a minute.
For that culture.
Yeah.
Even in the culture now, the leftover hippies, that's a big part of their culture.
Yeah, I'm sure you go down the Shakedown Street, somebody's out there playing a sitar somewhere.
Selling nitrous.
Yeah, and I guess every couple of years you get some of that stuff comes back. Like Eddie Vedder was really into Nursat Fateh Ali Khan. He did some Pearl Jam, did some kind of stuff with some Indian stuff, and I don't know.
I think it's interesting that it inspires musicians, popular musicians, and artists. It might start making them thinking differently. Writing different kind of songs.
It's maybe a lot of meditations going on.
Sure,
it's definitely a great music to meditate on.
Yeah, it makes you realize that there's a whole other world of music out there that's culturally just so different. But
but at least I said, Ravi's playing in that. He's somewhere else. Like, his head's flying around.
Everybody is.
Yeah, but he's really somewhere else.
But he definitely fits in the Monterey.
Absolutely.
He definitely, yeah. It's not like absurd that he's there.
But it's still like a new concept.
It's newer.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, the Beatles just came out in 65.
Yeah.
It's 67 now. I mean, you went from yeah to fucking sitar.
Right.
I mean, like I said earlier in the show, Sgt. Pepper came out like a week before Monterey happened.
Right.
And he's sitting on the stage like he's sitting Indian style. He's bare feet. There's like pillows all around him. Like they get the whole kind of different cultural experience. So yeah,
he's a lot of albums too.
I think George Harrison helped them out on that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, you want to move on to Sunday night?
Sunday night, I think it was the best night.
Yeah. So here's a list of the artists: The Blues Project, Big Brother and the Holding Company, The Group with No Name, Buffalo Springfield, The Who, The Grateful Dead, The Jimi Hendrix Experience, The Mamas and the Papas, Scott McKenzie, and then The Mamas and the Papas with Scott McKenzie.
God, let's start with The Grateful Dead.
Yeah, man.
You want to bust your load, right? Get
Well, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, let's start with
No,
them.
go for it.
Because I think they're really interesting because like a lot of people don't. You don't hear about it a lot that they played there.
You don't hear it at all because they're not in the movie.
Yeah.
They would not sign the paperwork for them to be in the movie, and they're not in the Woodstock movie either or the soundtrack.
They don't need to be though.
No shit. I mean,
they don't need.
They say they bombed. They bombed the big gigs.
Yeah.
They said they bombed Monterey.
Yeah.
And they bombed Woodstock.
Yeah.
And I listened to I was trying to find some other podcasts to listen to about some research just to hear the other perspective. And there's another show where these guys, there's a company called Criterion that puts out these like box sets of movies, and they try to review every single thing this company's done. So they did a review of the box set of this. And the guys were talking about they were so fucking wrong on so much. Like the one dude first, he complained that Otis Redding didn't play Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and then they were talking about like
they don't know what they're talking about,
right?
then.
And then the Who and Hendrix played back to back, and I was like,
no, they didn't.
Right? I was like, the Dead played in between them. Played in between them.
Man, what a fucking show that would have been.
But it's like who? So those guys, and I was gonna tweet them from our account.
Yeah, because we're really good at that.
Yeah, the episode was like 6 years old, and I was like, and I don't need to make another mistake tweeting at anybody like when I messed up with the Make It Stop podcast. But who the hell made the decision to put the Dead between the Who and Jimi Hendrix?
I think it's a good chill time. I think the Dead were just so blown away by the Who and the Weeknd. They're like obviously they're supplying the party, and they're just totally brain dead.
So do you think? Forgive me for asking this, but were the Grateful Dead the superior band of popularity between Hendrix and the Who? Even though
no way,
they were just.
Are
like
they
another...
still like a niche?
No, I believe they are like definitely the culture of the hippie culture. They've never been like a top 10 band or anything like that.
But they're like they're the veterans of these acts.
In America.
Because they already had their own following by then. The Dead already had a pretty great big
they
following.
Had a following.
So if the hippies are rolling in, like the Haight-Ashbury crowd, right? That's them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a couple other bands that are there.
Well, that's what I think Monterey, if they did anything on, what's the word I'm looking for? Popularized or commercialized or anything like that was the hippie movement. Like they,
sure.
Like the clothes, the knickknacks, the hats, the bandanas to the beads.
Yeah, it's like the same going into the same thing as the grunge era with the flannels and everything like that.
Like it was just starting, and the Grateful Dead was the pioneers of that, along with Airplane, and Holding Company. But they were definitely, if they wanted to show the culture, they would play the Dead.
See, that's what I really like. That's why I asked that question. Like, the Grateful Dead, even by this point, had a huge following. So I give them all the credit in the world for playing in the middle of both the Hendrix and the Who, because you had people just showing up just to see the Grateful Dead, even though you have all these great acts, especially on that, like on this day. But for them to play in the middle of these two, the middle of this sandwich, I love that, because they might have been like, oh, well, this band is great, and this band's the future, and this guy's the future, and here we are. So let's get everybody the opportunity to see these
Let's hear a Dead song.
Yeah. What do you want to hear? You got a couple on the playlist.
Put the Viva La Blues.
Viola Lee Blues?
Yes.
You got it.
The judge decreed it, clerk he wrote it, down the deed it. Judge decreed it, clerk he wrote it down.
Doing research for the show, did you listen to a little bit more Grateful Dead than you usually do?
I didn't. I think I probably listened to a little bit more Grateful Dead than you think I do.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah.
All right, because we never really discussed it.
Me and Bruce were talking about the Dead all week, and Bruce is a very intelligent about the whole hippie movement. He read the acid Kool-Aid test. That book is amazing.
I have a copy of it somewhere.
You know, he's seen the Dead and Company a few times.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And he's seen Further, which was
Wow,
Bob
yeah.
and Phil.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize,
We've
sir. I
gone
didn't
to-
know that you were...
We've seen.
You and I went to, not Splintered Sunlight, one of the other, who's the other,
Oh yeah, we went and saw. Oh shit, I forgot about that. We went and saw.
we went to the Keswick.
Dark Star Orchestra.
Yeah, the
I didn't
Keswick.
know
I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
we saw
To
Dark Star,
at
yeah.
the Electric Factory.
Yeah.
Dude, I was tripping my fucking face off.
Well, how come you never been to one of Grateful Dead shows? Because I only been going to Dead shows for how many years now? 8
10.
years? 10 years?
The last time I saw them was with, it was like 6 years ago with John. It was like the first tour John Mayer played
Okay.
with them. I
Yeah.
had tickets. My wife and I went. And Jess was she was like, I don't get it.
She was bored.
Yeah, she was.
Are
she
you
did.
bored at a point?
Sometimes with their stuff.
You know, you don't smoke grass.
Yeah.
You don't do anything. You like to drink a beer.
Yeah.
Do you go to a Dead show? It's like, all right, this is boring.
I had more fun watching the people, but then I also got really
That's
annoyed. I got
understandable.
annoyed really
Yeah.
quickly at some of the people.
Some of the Deadheads are such assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's-
I get more better response out of people at a metal show than
Yeah.
I do at a Dead show or a Fish show. Those entitled bastards are just.
I think
ugh.
I think it's worse at a Dead show than a
Oh,
Fish
yeah.
show.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if you haven't heard yet, the Grateful Dead's going to play Citizens Bank Park in August. I think it's like August 3rd. And me and Ryan briefly talked about it. But can you imagine what that's going to look like?
It's going to be awesome.
The parking
but,
lot
like-
alone will just be crazy.
We're just gonna tailgate at McCusker's.
Yeah.
Just tailgate here and then shoot over to the stadium and just kind
gonna
of
be
walk
August.
around the parking lot.
It's going to be August.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, those guys. A lot of those fans don't bathe to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's gonna
Well, that's
be-
what I mean. Like, you go to a Dead show.
Some people
and
may,
it's-
some people may have no idea what the Grateful Dead show is. It's still a traveling show of the 60s.
Yeah.
You can go to a Grateful Dead show and know what going to Woodstock is like.
Yeah.
Between seeing great music, you get this vibe. The vibe is what sells everything.
Yeah.
People are very nice to each other. I mean, you get a lot of entitled tapers. You got a lot of guys. Oh, I've seen them in '67.
It's like, oh,
Right.
you never saw
I was like,
Jerry?
sorry, dude. I was fucking 5.
Right.
But they are entitled dudes.
Yeah.
I find like the cultural phenomenon of them and what they represent in the music industry and how they conduct themselves as a business
Yeah.
is just fascinating to me. Because I think at one point, man, when they broke up, when Jerry died, they were like I forget the exact number, but they were like one of the 50 largest like companies in California.
Oh,
when
yeah.
They,
Sure.
and it was
Yeah.
like I forget what the number was. It was high, like how much like revenue that how they didn't want to really keep touring, but they felt like they had to because all these people were dependent upon them being on the road for their business.
Well, I think that what ultimately killed Jerry. Like, they wouldn't give him a chance to rest. They wouldn't get a chance to get clean. They were just like, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. And he felt the responsibility of this machine and people getting paid. He felt responsibility for these people.
Yeah.
So he would stretch himself out, and he ultimately died from it.
Yeah, and it's not even the people in the band going on tour. It was like the people that follow them around and make like their arts and crafts and stuff. They're
Yeah,
like, if we
there's
don't
a-
go on the road, they're not doing anything.
There's a big thing called Shakedown Street, and they sell everything from like anything hippie-ized you want, you can get.
I really have a lot of respect to the way that the Grateful Dead do their business. I guess they had that 50th anniversary show at Soldiers Field in Chicago. And, in the world of the internet and getting your tickets and Ticketmaster, they still had a big portion of tickets through mail-in.
It was all mail. It was a lot of mail order.
Yeah, it was a lot of mail order.
Great.
Dude, that's great.
They were showing the envelopes that people were sending in for mail order. So they would pick the envelope. They would put this amazing artwork on it.
That's cool.
So because they would only get maybe a couple thousand tickets.
Yeah.
And then you got 25,000 people asking for tickets.
I was at a party. It was they played those couple nights at Soldier Field, and they were live streaming them on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was at a buddy's house, and it was Friday night, and we were sitting out by his pool, and we were watching it, and the guy was he's an enormous Dead fan, and he was like, man, I wish I was there. And I was like,
yeah,
dude, it's only 6:00, dude. Go to the airport. And after he had a couple beers, he fucking left.
Did he really?
That night,
no kidding.
He drove to the air. He pulled out his phone. He booked a flight at 10:00 at night, and he flew out to fucking Chicago on a whim with one of his buddies.
Did
and
he
was
get in?
He didn't.
Yeah,
but
there's
he was
no way.
But I was
Yeah.
hey, dude, just to have that, to
Sure.
Be part of it.
screw it, dude. Let's
Yeah.
just, I have
Yeah.
to be there. Let's go.
I
He's
tried-
one of those guys. He's seen him 80 times,
Yeah.
and
I
But
tried
you're
to
there,
go.
though.
I tried to go, and it was impossible to get tickets.
Yeah. I was like,
it was
dude,
easier to get the hotel room
Yeah.
than it was to get tickets.
and I was
for
like,
it.
well, you got the story, right? And he was like,
No.
but
Did
and
he
then
get
they
to
wound
hear-
up going on tour.
But he got to hear it, though, outside Soldiers
think
Field.
so, yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, I
That's,
was like, just a story.
Yeah,
Just saying, screw
yeah.
it. Let's just go right
Yeah.
now. Let's
Yeah.
just go get on a flight.
Sure.
I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. I have a Grateful Dead tattoo. I was disappointed in the 50th anniversary. I thought it was really the songs they picked were awful.
Yeah.
And Trey Anastasio was playing Jerry.
Yeah.
And they would not let him sing. Phil Lesh fucking sang
Yeah.
all the fucking
Fuck
songs.
Phil.
And Phil can't fucking sing.
Yeah.
He pulled rank that whole
Yeah.
all weekend. He pulled rank. And to me, the farewell to me that concert was awful. I have it at home. I was watching it like people watch football. What the fuck are they doing?
Yeah.
Why the fuck are they playing this? I was so hyped about Trey playing with the Dead, and I thought the Phil Lesh ultimately ruined that weekend.
Well, you always said you always thought that Phil pushed Jerry too much.
Yeah, I mean,
when
when it came to the company and giving people jobs and
Yeah.
everything like that, Phil was on board for it.
And
Bill-
I think with that mail order thing, that was a big Phil push.
It was
because
all Phil.
And his wife,
his
runs,
wife,
yeah,
his wife wanted to be the manager.
yeah.
Well, I read, circling back to Monterey, that they were really skeptical of all of it, and a couple times they threatened to just go do their own festival,
They could.
the same day, down the street, because they
Yeah.
they weren't enjoying the vibes they were getting from how it was going to be put
Yeah.
together.
I think they were seeing it getting commercialized, and they were like, nah, this ain't happening. This was going to first be like a San Francisco thing, and now you're bringing all these bands out here, and now you're making a fucking movie.
Right, and you're charging
Yeah.
for tickets,
Tickets.
and they wanted a lot of the San Francisco bands wanted it to be completely free for everybody.
But that's why they wouldn't sign anything. They try to not erase themselves from the history of the thing, but it just
They wouldn't sign anything for anything.
Yeah.
They were so unorganized.
Man, they're lucky for them to even show up and play this thing. Even
They were there. Well, their sound guy was there at the Acid.
Yeah,
They were
right.
there.
Yeah.
Bear.
They were responsible for the whole thing, for everybody having the performances that they had.
That's
Yeah.
a good point, though. They're not. You don't remember them musically, and unless you're really taking a look at it,
Yeah.
we did to learn that Owsley was there. You don't know it, but you sure as shit know his influence on everything,
Sure.
right? It's all. I mean, they're influenced by them being there with him.
Yeah.
Is all over this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, talking about influence, you really like sitting at home listening to country music. You like to sit out, listen to the
Yeah.
fire. You may not even know about this song, but this gives a nice feel for what the Dead is, and it's called Direwolf.
Yep, I know the song.
Okay,
Yeah,
for
play a little
people may not know what the Grateful Dead's about. You think maybe this will give you an idea.
Did they play this at Monterey?
No, it's just more of like, hey guys, listen
Okay,
to this song.
Listen to the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, this is my opportunity.
I think they are the hardest band to classify in the history of rock and roll. But let me shut up and get out of the way. Let's listen to it.
Well, before you,
Yeah.
they say we're not the best at what we do. We're the only ones that do what we do.
Yes, I've heard them say that.
I mean,
So-
they're such they were such influenced by blues. They're such a hardcore blues band.
Yeah.
But here's this acoustic side of them. Country.
In the timbers up in Mario, the wolves are running round. The winter was so hard and cold, froze 10 feet beneath the ground. Don't murder me, I beg of you, don't murder me. Please don't murder me.
I like to, think, the warden Rob Owens is out there, and he doesn't know anything about the Grateful Dead. So I'm just trying to show Rob some songs. Rob, if you're listening, check out the Grateful Dead. Check out our playlist.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And they still play that song. Like, they play with John Mayer, but it has a little bit different feel to it. You know?
John
But it's
Mayer,
still great, though.
John Mayer now plays with Dead and Company.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It's too slow for my likings. It drags, and his voice isn't that great.
But it's really funny. Like, I'm not a John Mayer fan, not even a little bit. But I've seen him 5 or 6 times with the
I'm going
Dead
every
Company.
time.
Yeah,
I'm going every time.
And it's like, I've never seen the Dead like back in the day. But I love I love what he brings to the band. He's an amazing musician.
John Mayer? He's a really good guitar player.
Yeah. He definitely does great job in the band. Does he sound like Jerry?
No.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's trying to either.
That was what was different with when we went and saw Further. They had a Jerry clone.
Yeah.
Like he sound like Jerry, and that's why Further was awesome. This is totally different.
Didn't Joan Osborne sing for the Dead?
She did. She sang they had the Further tour, and she sang on that tour, but then she also sang backup for when they were called just the Dead.
Right. Did you ever see her perform with the Dead?
No. Oh, yeah. She played in Camden.
How was it?
Fucking awesome.
Yeah, everybody I ever talked to that saw Joan Osborne play with the Grateful Dead said it was the closest thing to Jerry. Am I right about that?
It was a nice vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to with Jerry because I was too young.
Yeah.
But from what I gathered, that was a great show. I remember that show.
I wish I would have seen it.
I liked her.
Yeah.
I mean, that one, I
She-
don't
you know,
never need to hear that one song
No,
ever again,
no.
but the rest of that album was solid.
But after she did that, the Dead community totally adopted her. That's the thing. It's like once you play with the Dead or you make a move with them, the Deadheads will follow you that whole time. John Mayer has a bunch of Deadheads that follow him now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, you go to I think John Mayer actually played like a fall tour, and he did like the Wells Fargo Center and this and that. And I think he did play a Dead song.
He probably did. I mean, he has 2 drummers.
Yeah, But good for him. He reinvented himself.
I think his solo shit isn't good at all.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
No,
I don't
nobody.
like, I don't like
poppy.
his voice.
It's poppy.
His voice is really not.
Yeah, but I don't mind what he does for a Grateful Dead, but I do understand why people don't dislike him. Because a lot of people are not on board with John Mayer, but a lot of people are.
Well, the Deadheads are a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
I could say I'm one of them.
But like you said, we're always going to go. As long as they tour, we're always going to go.
And
Doesn't
my
matter.
whole thing is, you want to trash them? Don't fucking go.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to get tickets.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't
I'm
go.
with you. Yeah, then don't go.
But going back to Monterey, the Grateful Dead played 3 songs. They ultimately crashed and burned that set. They were totally against anything organized. I'm sure it was driving them fucking crazy.
Yeah. Before we get into some of the other bands, I mentioned as we were listing the groups, there was a band who played called The Group With No Name. And I was like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, I was wondering that myself.
They said it
when
was
you read
literally,
off,
it was a band that got pulled together like a couple weeks before that, and they didn't have a name. So they I was like, is that the shtick? It was like, oh no, they literally don't have a name. Couldn't find anything about them. No recordings on YouTube. Everything I read said they were absolutely terrible.
Good for them to get in. They got their foot in the door. They scammed their way in there.
Especially on a day like Sunday with all those bands.
Yeah. So
forget about it.
They had to know somebody.
Yeah. I read the name. I saw the names of the people. I didn't recognize any of them, and I didn't find like who did they know, how did they get in, but it was like just a bunch of dudes that just threw a band together really quickly, and
you think they would put a better band together?
Yeah.
Just looking around. All right, we got Mickey Dalton's here. We got Brian Jones here.
Was anybody significant in that band?
No.
They must have knew somebody. They must have knew booking.
They needed somebody.
And it's just been forgotten to history. So just
And they were absolutely
Every review I read, anything that I saw that mentioned them said they were the worst performance of the entire weekend.
Man, this sounds like a bad movie. This sounds like a good bad movie.
Yeah, right.
Well, along with a lot of along with a lot of good acts come bad acts.
Sure.
But
Good for them, yeah.
You want to talk about The Who?
Yes, let's start smashing shit. Man, you said Ravi Shankar was offended by The Who smashing their instruments.
Yeah. So, I wrote, this is not hippie music in my notes.
No, I mean, The Who totally gave one of the most memorable performances at Monterey.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about My Generation in the episode around punk music. I mean, that's like a proto-punk.
Yeah.
It's a garage rock proto-punk song.
They played that song, and then after that, they closed with that, and they smashed all their instruments.
Do you guys have a set list of what The Who played at Monterey?
Yeah.
Just kind of curious of what the vibe that they were.
They played Summertime Blues.
Okay.
They played...
That's in there. That's in that time, that sound of what's going on that weekend.
That's when... Yeah.
Substitute, Summertime Blues, Pictures of Lily, A Quick One While He's Away, Happy Jack, and in My Generation, parentheses, with instrument smashing.
Wow.
A lot of the Who stuff that I like didn't come out until the 70s.
No, I agree with you.
The early Who stuff is too like British. Henry VIII I am.
Yeah. I've heard you say that.
But that's
before.
my problem with the Stones early in their career.
Again, I was thinking the same exact thing.
I read something, that VH1 documentary you mentioned, Pete Townsend was on it, and he said he didn't know how they were going to be accepted because he said that, like, my generation, he's like, my generation, the generation in that song isn't this generation I'm singing for. He's like, it's the mods in Britain, the British.
Yeah.
And he's like, they were really apprehensive. I thought it was interesting, too. They had a shit ton of money invested in England in, like, their equipment, and they didn't bring any of it over, like their amps and everything, because they realized how expensive it was going to be. So they borrowed all this,
and they
all the amps, and then at the end of My Generation, man, they smash all the shit, and you can see the videos. They set off like smoke bombs, and you see the crew run out and they start grabbing all the microphones, because they're afraid they're going to get wrecked because the next artists have to use them. And Keith Moon like kicks his guitar, like or his drums.
Keith Moon blows up. He
There's
loves
like a
blowing shit up.
firecracker.
Yeah, just fucking. Can you imagine?
Yeah, he hurt his ankle or something.
They didn't want to go on before Hendrix. They were like, "Fuck that! We know what he does. Let us go on before him."
Yeah, they said they got in an argument. And they wound up flipping a coin backstage over who was going to go first.
Man, I think the Who is not obviously as memorable as the Hendrix set.
No, not at all.
But it surprises me that was their first American
yeah, I didn't know that.
performances.
Yeah, I didn't know that prior to that.
Yeah, I mean 67.
Yeah, but it's also like, of course they're going to remember us. We're going to make sure they remember
totally
us.
Did. By Woodstock, they almost headlined Woodstock.
Yeah.
They played all Tommy at Woodstock.
Yeah.
That's how close they are to that.
Let's play. I'll play a little bit of My Generation. So this is from the Live at Leeds album, but you get the vibe of what this sounds like live back then.
My generation, baby. Why don't you all fade away? My generation. Try to dig what we all say. I'm trying to cause a big sensation. Talking about my generation. My generation is my generation, baby.
Man, everybody's tripping balls, and they come out.
But everybody's tripping ball. But okay, you talk about Rob. Like, people were not very happy that the Who was playing there. Now here you have a set, like a vibe set in this whole weekend, and it's all like kind of the beginning of this peace and love and this chill out thing, and then you have this band come out with this music that's definitely more aggressive than any other band there. It's political in a very negative way. It's just something. It's something that definitely sticks out.
Yeah, you sat through 3 hours of Ravi Shankar.
Yeah,
and then
I think that I would smash my shit too. But I think the Who had a very peace love sound in the 60s. Before, I think this is when they were changing into something differently when they wrote My Generation. Yeah. Like I said earlier, a lot of their songs were very
Yeah,
British.
Yeah. But that song always just sets a tone for what's going on. In my opinion, I just think it's a very different feel than what was
It's a
going
punk
on
rock
there.
song.
Exactly. It's a punk rock song.
Everybody's being hippies, and they're coming
and here
out.
they come out with this aggressiveness.
And nobody's
aggressiveness,
ever
you know?
seen people smash guitars before.
Do you think people were sitting around like, this is kind of violent?
No,
Or-
they were shocking. It was probably one of the most shocking moments in music history.
Yeah.
For like an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Until Hendrix comes out.
They were just smashing shit. You see them on stage, and you see that people start grabbing pieces of the guitar, and it's like, oh, we put these shit back together.
I read that too, that their guitar tech said they put it all back together.
I read that.
How the hell do they keep that neck straight?
Yeah.
Well, that was like, not to break off from the subject, but the smashing of instruments, like Mike Anthony from Van Halen, like he would smash his bass over center, and it's a prop. Like, you have a guy going around picking up all the screws and things like that
to put it back together.
I know,
you have a sweet spot where it breaks.
Well, Mike Anthony had a hinge on the thing, and he would usually do it with his thing. But it's show business. It's show business.
Yeah.
But they really blew up their shit though. Like they
were famous for doing that shit, and they finally did it in America.
Yeah,
and just that alone busted out the aggression. It became punk rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
basically, like 10 years later, punk rock came in.
That's a good point. But that's like I was going back to that weekend. They're like aliens. Like I know we're going to talk about Hendrix and everything like that, but it's like Hendrix and the Who for performance is like apples and oranges in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then you got the Grateful Dead.
Then he has Grateful Dead in the middle.
Holy shit!
And it's like, all right, let's kind of chill everybody out.
It didn't work.
Do you think
they bombed? They say they bombed.
Yeah, I saw Phil Lesh say that. He said they stunk.
Yeah.
But all right, Hendrix. Man, this is another one of those performances. Like, if you listen to this, you got to watch it. You got to see it because you said before he looks like an alien. I mean, he comes out and he is in that real hippie outfit.
He's in a different like universe, and
they made posters out of him at this performance.
I was going to say, like, his picture of him burning his guitar is probably the most famous picture of his career and of this whole weekend.
Well, people don't know Jimi Hendrix he was American. Jimi Hendrix. He played a bunch of gigs with Little Richard and all that Chitlin circuit. So Hendrix is a better guitar player than anybody in America.
Yeah, he played for James Brown too.
Yeah. So he jumps on a plane to England after somebody, I forget who discovered him, somebody from a hippie band, and brought him to Europe, brought him to England, and he fucking plugged in, and he blew all those guitar players away.
Well, because that's where everything was like popping off, like that British invasion. I don't think that America, like, if he would have done that in live performances in a bar somewhere, people are like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I think it was more acceptable over there for the expression of just.
He definitely did smash guitars in England.
Yeah.
But this one was the most famous one.
Yeah. But like just his aggressiveness and the use of like with Townsend, like it was more accepted, I would imagine, because that's the kind of like sounds that Hendrix was making. They were trying to do out in England.
And Hendrix like, hey America, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I'm setting it on fire.
Yeah. He's playing left-handed.
A right-handed
guitar, left-handed, and he's got the outfit. He's an African. He's a black guy. Yeah, and he's not playing that traditional like blues stuff. I mean, he's just like out of this world, and just even the way you see him on the stage, is the way he looks and like his facial expressions and the way his hands are moving. It's a
totally new ball game.
Yeah, everything is different.
He revolutionized the guitar. People never looked at it the way he did. What did he use? A Vox fuzz pedal.
Yeah.
And they were around, but people made it sound like noise. But he put a wah-wah pedal on it to control the volume.
Yeah.
So a lot of his sounds was coming out of wow.
That heavy distortion is such a Hendrix
thing.
Can
you play little Jimmy from Monterey?
Yeah, Rock Me Baby?
Yeah, listen to this version of Rock Me Baby.
Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. Rock me, baby, rock me around.
I love that version of Rock Me Baby. I've known about that version for a million years.
Like Hendrix, did a lot of cover, like live covers, and he always made them his own songs, man.
Yeah,
he made them his own thing, and every time I hear Hendrix, it never gets old to me. It's like, man, this guy is what we call in the business. This guy's a motherfucker.
He is a motherfucker. He's the original motherfucker.
Yeah, nobody did what he did before him, and Steve Ray Vaughan did a great job. But nobody could touch him.
You made a good point when he makes songs his own, because the song that he smashes his instruments for is Wild Thing, right? And that's
that's a cover.
And that's the classic garage rock sound.
Yeah.
And the basis of garage rock is dudes that don't know how to play the instruments. And here's this guy who's this amazing virtuoso who's pushing the limit on every other song. And he's playing that song that's famous because it does sound really rough.
Yeah.
And he's taking it to this whole nother artistic level.
Because he's a garage band guy.
But he has his own reputation to behold. He always has to go one above. He has a famous story. Jimi Hendrix got the Sgt. Pepper album the day it came out. That night, he opened with Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
He was a master of learning songs and doing it his own way.
I want to say he played the whole album, dude, because I've heard that story before.
I don't know.
And you had who was in the crowd? Eric Clapton was in the crowd, and McCartney was there also when he did it. And McCartney was kind of like, "Man, this took us friggin' 6 months ago.
Yeah.
It was out for one day. Here he is playing on stage."
And McCartney's the one who, when he's on the board of directors for this show, he says, "You guys got to have Jimi Hendrix play this."
He said because he just saw it. Everybody saw, everybody's out of a job when they see Hendrix play for the first time.
And the one-upsmanship too. I went kind of far down the story of why he burned the guitar. They said he had planned to smash his instrument, and then he saw the Who do it, and he was just like, "Okay, I'm going to think of something else," and he swapped out his guitar right before he plays Wild Thing because he had the same thing. They would put the guitar back together, but then he gets the lighter fluid and he lights the thing on fire. Well, it's still plugged in too.
Yeah. You hear the strings pluck.
Yeah. And then he plays Wild Thing. He lights the guitar on. Well, first he starts he's holding it up against the amp and he's playing all the feedback.
Looks like he's having sex with it.
Yeah, he's banging up against the amplifier.
Nobody's ever seen anything like this.
He starts stroking the guitar, right, the neck of it, and then he straddles it and he's writhing his hips. And I made in my notes that when we were talking about Wendy Williams in the last episode, that she got arrested for doing shit like this, and so he's doing it, and then he pours the lighter fluid on it. And he's raising, he's moving it, he's summoning magic out of the guitar.
It's one of the most memorable moments in rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Because he's trying to symbolize the soul of the guitar.
It's you see it everywhere. You see that image of him doing, they caught that picture, that moment perfectly.
I think people think that was Woodstock.
I think everybody
remembers
it
was Monterey.
At one time I did also.
Yeah.
I know that Jimmy has done the burning guitar gimmick before Monterey.
Okay.
But, him doing it took it one further than the Who could smash. You can smash.
You can smash guitars all day.
You can smash all shit all day. I'm going to light this motherfucker on fire.
Somebody in his camp's like, "Hey, Jimmy, do the burning thing." Oh, okay, I'll do the burning thing.
Jimmy's like, "I'm going to fuck these motherfuckers up."
And I thought it was cool, because then when he lights it on fire, he stands up and he's smiling.
Yeah,
and he starts he nods to a couple, he gets the attention of somebody in the crowd and was like, "Hey, do you want a piece of this?" And he's handing out the pieces of the guitar.
Yeah.
So then I was like, "Where are those?"
Somebody has it. So
I found one. There's one piece in a museum in Seattle called the Experience Music Project. The guitar strap got auctioned off for $45,000 in 2011, and the other pieces are just kind of
floating around.
Yeah, they're kind of lost to history.
Because if you see, I also seen that it's in Seattle, piece of the guitar, and it's the famous guitar that he painted on.
It was hand painted.
And you can see the corner, and it's that famous paint.
He put
job
flowers
that he did
on it.
Dude, I'm going to get out there and check. I got to get out and see Jimmy's grave to begin with.
Yeah.
Out in Seattle. His father finally won all the copywriting to Jimmy's music. and he built this huge memorial thing for
Yeah.
Jimmy's grave.
Well, that I remember that happened. That happened like in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's when they came out with Voodoo Soup or something like that. They had a whole bunch of release. That album's great, dude.
Yeah.
They put a blues album out.
Yeah.
Which is a great album.
Yeah, they're like those albums that came out like in the 90s and the late 90s. They're great albums, man.
It was great. Like a lot of things were in the vault, and Jimmy's dad was like, "No, they belong to me," like that. And he fought a long time for it.
Was the Band of Gypsies part of that? The Band of Gypsies come out like prior.
After the Experience,
Yeah,
I think
That
so,
came out
yeah.
Experience.
You ever listen to like Machine Gun and all?
Yeah.
That's a great album.
Yeah.
It's a great live album anyway. But like, one thing like, we have to talk about, like his voice is great. Yeah, I mean, it's like his roots of like the blues and everything like that are in there. And in my opinion, again, nobody does it better than him.
Yeah, he's got kind of like a smoky quality to his voice, and I mean like smoke, like a cigarette smoky, not Smokey Robinson.
He's not the greatest singer, but like Dylan, he's a stylist.
Yeah,
Sure.
for his sound, his voice.
But like
really
a lot
works.
of like even like today, Ryan had a band Albino Red, and Ryan's guitar player, good friend of our buddy Timmy, and he does Hendrix better than Hendrix, like the voice wise.
He would do that song "Rock Me Baby" that we just played, and he would go into total Jimmy moves.
Yeah.
Like he'd do like from the Monterey, move for move, like he'd get down on his knees. The only thing he didn't do was fucking light his guitar on fire.
Couldn't afford. He plays too much. He had a nice guitar.
Yeah.
He has nice guitars.
It's funny.
But no, I think that he Hendrix, like we're like just like the Beatles. 50 years from now, people are still going to talk about Jimi Hendrix.
Absolutely.
I think any kid that picks up a guitar should be the first thing he has is the Jimi Hendrix experience. Just that first fucking album going into the Monterey Pop Festival, is unbelievable.
And what it means, like the revolution or the rebellion of rock and roll. I mean, is there anything more rebellion in rock and roll than Jimi Hendrix lighting his guitar on fire?
No.
You know,
Not
it's
even
just
the Who
crazy.
like smashing their instruments or anything like that.
I think Hendrix lighting his guitar on fire. That's like the pinnacle of it.
That's like an art thing though too. Yeah, I mean that's more like artistic.
I think he seized the moment. Like he saw, here's my moment. The movie cameras are rolling. How am I going to... Now, the Who came out, smashed all their shit. How am I going to one-up everybody?
Yeah.
Do you think he really, like, kind of had that in mind?
Definitely.
You think so? That he was,
Definitely.
like, going to, like, try to, like...
He did it before.
I'm going to make a mark.
Especially they were making a movie.
Yeah.
You know? It's going to be memorial through all life.
Yeah.
There was no Woodstock yet. There was none of that shit.
There wasn't even a lot of live concert movies or footage.
Yeah.
This might have been, like, one of the first ones.
First one. Yeah. Crazy. So that's almost the end of. There's one more artist that plays Monterey, and it's the Mamas and the Papas. So they closed it because they organized it.
Yeah.
And also Scott McKenzie. So Scott McKenzie wrote "If You're Going to San Francisco." He wrote it for this show. Mm-hmm. So I think John Phillips wrote that song for him.
Yeah.
And then that became the flagship or the advertising song. I don't think it's on your playlist.
No.
In the show.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because they wrote this afterwards, didn't they?
No, he performs it at
Did
the...
he?
Yeah, he comes out and he sings it with the Mamas and the Papas, too. It's not the best song in the world.
Hey, John McCusker, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
Say hello to Rob Owens.
Rob Owens will like it if you said hi to him.
How that Bobby Abreu doing?
Amazing. Oh. Yeah, I'll play 30 seconds of Scott McKenzie. Just
sure.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if it was the last song that they played. It was really close near the end of the show.
I mean, it feels like it would be a great ending to a whole great weekend.
That song really became like the song about that movement and that era.
Yeah,
and
I guess so. Like I think the song's a cliche, and like it grew into that.
It became. But the original thought of it.
Yeah, I'm with you though.
You know,
yeah,
the
original
what a
thought.
great
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Normally not my favorite song, but listening to it after listening to all this other stuff and trying to get the vibe, I think I kind of got it a little bit more.
Yeah. It must have been an awesome weekend. Just like listening to the music for the last 2 weeks gave me a great vibe.
Yeah. And the Mamas and the Papas, they did not have a good performance, man.
No,
They were
bombed.
awful.
Did we say that John Phillips the shitbag of the week?
John Phillips is we could almost name this after him. We've talked about some bad dudes, like Turner,
he's
and
the biggest shitbag.
Yeah,
ever.
so he allegedly had a incestuous relationship with his daughter for 10 years, and she said
he gave her like LSD at a young age, and
he shot her up with like heroin and stuff, and then she
Mackenzie Phillips.
Yeah, she was eight is enough, or like some shit like that.
And she got pregnant, and she was afraid that it was his, and she aborted the baby because she was afraid that it was a child of incest. And he's
how do you do that? Like, it's just
scumbag, shitbag of the week. I mean, I like the Mamas and the Papas a lot. Yeah, but I listening to their performance of this was not good. They said that they were so tied up in actually planning the show that they didn't rehearse for
it's a lot of work. I can imagine.
But you put rehearsal in, for God's sakes.
But how much are they really doing, dude? Are they calling?
No, they're using their names.
Yeah, they're not out there calling like the concession guys and this and that.
There's some stuff in the documentary where they're showing them on the phone with some of the artists because they're trying to
sign them up.
Some people are bailing out, or and at one point John Phillips is on the phone and he's like, and he gives it to Michelle Phillips and he's like, can you talk to this is so and so on the phone? I don't know. And then they broke up a couple months right after that.
I could see why. They look like a mess up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time. Again, this bar ruined the Mamas and the Papas for me for a very long time because I guess people were playing because it was kind of funny and people doing Mama Cass imitation. But like recently doing listening to music that we were going to listen to today, like I listened earlier this week. I do like the Mamas and the Papas. I think that Mama Cass without that band, they would have been nothing without her. She was the whole talent of the band. Yeah. I mean, the songwriting's a songwriting, but you need someone to sing it. Yeah. Let's play Mamas and the Papas.
Yeah. You got Creek Alley on here and Dancing in the Street. You got a preference?
I like the Dancing in the Street.
Yeah, they played that at Monterey.
Yeah.
Summer's here and the time is right for dancing in the streets. They're dancing in Chicago.
To sing harmonies like that, you have to be on.
Yeah.
And they were just partying all weekend.
Yeah.
And they just, if you see it, they're like totally a train wreck.
Yeah.
They're probably like sitting around like, look what we created. We did this. Aren't we great?
This is the easy part. Let's go up there and play.
Yeah.
Here's the easy part. Yeah, guess what?
Yeah.
You know what I thought was really interesting? This has nothing to do. Mama Cass, she died of a heart attack, and there was always that story that she choked on a ham sandwich.
I always thought that was horrible.
That's awful.
People still think that.
They said like a doctor or somebody, like a doctor that was there, like, and responded to when they found her, that there was a half-eaten ham sandwich there, and the guy made a joke.
Yeah.
And that became a little bit...
What an asshole.
She died in the exact same hotel room as Keith Moon from The Who.
Really?
Same hotel, same room. So there's like...
I think I
thought
remember
was trippy.
that before. But she has such a low self-esteem. She was in love with one of the guys from...
the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had some serious dysfunction
Yeah,
going
they're a
on.
dysfunctional family.
Before John Phillips
Jesus. This might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
But she had a very low self-esteem of herself, and like she died, I think she died like a lonely person. There's one thing.
She has a daughter.
Yeah. There was one, like, she's
She has
doing
a
a
daughter.
show, and like, she's like, oh, the guy groupies out there. She's like, oh, what's your name? This, that, that. All right, I'm in room 217, and throws him the key, and like, But she had, like, she substance abuse, like, like, they're dysfunction. I can't, like,
They're the worst out of the hippie bands.
It's just funny because, they're like a folkish rock, band.
But just imagine how big they were to put on a festival like this on their reputation.
Yeah. So that's that, man. I've got a handful of artists who were supposed to be there and couldn't, or some artists that, like, why weren't they? So the first one, Doug, you mentioned earlier, was the Beach Boys. So the Beach Boys were actually, they were signed up and they were going to play, and Brian Wilson was on the board, and They were actually they bailed out, and they wound up. John Phillips got the Byrds to fill in for them at the last minute, and there was a couple different reasons around it. One was the Beach Boys were a mess.
Sure.
At this point,
Yeah. God, yeah. 67.
The one
Yeah.
dude was he was avoiding the draft. He had been
Carl
drafted.
Wilson.
Carl
Yeah.
Wilson, and he wouldn't go.
Well,
And
they
so they were
thought-
like, we can't show up on stage because I'll get arrested.
Well, they thought that they were going to come and arrest him on stage.
Yeah.
That was that was my favorite reason why they didn't do it, but there was a couple other different reasons.
said
He's
that,
going to
like-
get Brian Wilson out of bed.
Yeah. They said like in surf music was pretty much over.
Yeah,
at
I
this
don't
point.
think they would really fit in anyway.
And they were afraid that they were going to get booed.
Yeah.
There, they were like the hippies didn't
Yeah.
like them.
But they could have went up and played Pet Sounds, and because
Yeah.
Pet Sounds made Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I said
That's
earlier
very true.
in the week, earlier in the show, that Sgt. Pepper came out a week before Monterey.
Yeah.
But they were so commercialized, though. You know what I mean?
They also said that they were pissed that initially they thought they were going to be the headliners, and they realized that
Yeah.
nobody was getting paid.
They were a
and they
huge
were
band.
like, screw it.
They were a huge band.
know.
Yeah.
The Love and Spoonful. I was like, man, that's another like San Francisco hot time somewhere in the
okay.
city.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Holy
that's a.
They don't fit.
You know, they're part of that scene though, man. With the Byrds, and
Yeah.
they were friends with the Mamas and the Papas.
Did they
they're-
say why didn't?
Yes, their guitar player had gotten arrested for marijuana, and they didn't want to show up and get in more trouble.
Because everybody else is smoking
Yeah.
pot. Can you imagine getting there? I fucking told you it was going to be cool.
Zappa. Frank Zappa was asked to play.
Really?
And he said, I don't respect half of these bands, and I won't,
Yeah.
I
I
won't
can
be
see him
there.
saying that.
Yeah.
I can see him saying that.
The Beatles. So the Beatles were invited, and they said they had retired from performing
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
So they were out.
I'm glad. Like it would have been the Beatles show if the Beatles came up and played this thing.
Yeah.
It's better off they didn't
Yeah.
play it. You know.
The Monkees. So
That would've been
the
awesome. That would've
been great.
Monkees asked to play,
They said
and John
no.
Phillips said no.
I can understand that.
So Peter Tork and Mickey Dolenz were there.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
They're a TV
they,
show.
But they let Peter Tork introduce bands.
Yeah.
Well, that was nice of them.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Tork was the most hippie child out of
He
all
was.
of them.
Yeah.
And they were like really super popular. Probably
They were huge.
They were probably more popular than anybody like on that stage at that time.
They were huge.
Yeah.
Curtis Mayfield was supposed to play.
That would have been awesome.
And
Yeah.
he backed out. Dylan. So Bob Dylan
Yeah,
was
good luck with that shit.
well. So he was recovering from his motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he wouldn't play. And they said that Hendrix played like a Rolling Stone
In
as
honor.
tribute. Yeah. Motown we talked about. So Barry Gordy
Barry's
wouldn't
like,
allow them.
Yeah, nobody's getting paid. Well, guess what? No Motown showing up.
The Rascals were invited, and they had a scheduling conflict. Dionne Warwick. So
Really?
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
So
Dionne Warwick.
If you find early posters advertising this, she's listed as performing. And I said that when John Phillips in the video at the beginning goes like, "Hey Michelle, will you take this phone call?" It's Dionne Warwick on the other phone.
The Psychic Friends
Trying to
Network.
say I can't make it.
You got to talk to the Psychic Friend Network.
I was
Play
told-
Monterey.
I was
Damn
like,
it.
what? She had like another gig at the same time, and she was going to bail out. And the other gig was like, "Well, we're going to hold you accountable
Yeah,
for like
no,
the,
sure.
all the
Yeah,
the
contract,
cost."
yeah.
Um,
Man,
the-
I'm glad she didn't play.
yeah. I was
She
like, "What
sucks.
the hell?"
That's what friends are for. That's it.
Yeah. The Doors.
Yeah, good luck with
Yeah,
that.
good luck with that too.
So
yeah.
the promoters said that they just forgot to invite them, which that's
Yeah,
bullshit.
okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
could you imagine Janis and Jim at the same fucking
I'm sure-
place?
I'm sure at one time they did. They
It'd be
did.
like a fucking
They're like on
demolition
stage.
derby.
Yeah. John Densmore said that they weren't invited because their music was too dark for all the vibes that were going on.
But that's like going back to stuff as Jefferson Airplane, like White Rabbit. You know, the Doors could have played that show.
Yeah.
Like Jim going up there. This is the end.
There was that other festival that was like a week before this. I forget what it was called, but the Doors played at that. So it's
Right.
like, you know, they're around. So I got four more. All of these. Cream was invited. Well, Clapton says they were invited. John Phillips said we never invited him.
I can't get. Yeah.
Whatever. It could be Clapton's ego. Whatever. So now I got three other bands that were invited, but they had to bail out because they couldn't get visas because of drug issues. Donovan was supposed to come. Donovan couldn't come because he got
drug issue? Yeah.
He got busted for drugs.
No kidding.
The Kinks
Yeah.
were invited.
that would've been great.
Yeah.
And the Stones. So
Yeah.
the Stones that was like the Jagger Richards got busted and they couldn't get
Yeah.
visas to get into the country. So
But you know, though, like if like it's like the Beatles show, if the Stones showed up, it would have been
A different thing.
Yeah.
Everybody would have just been like that instead of discovering Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix,
Yeah.
discovering Janis Joplin,
There's more-
discovering Otis Redding.
Yeah.
Accessory show is more important for them not to be there.
Yeah,
so
I mean-
these acts could move like be discovered.
But in hindsight, you look at all these like enormous bands that played here. Like I shared one of the posters on our Facebook last night, and you're like, damn, like dude, $6 to go see them.
Yeah.
But you also have like the biggest acts in music: the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors, Dylan. None of them are there.
None of them are there.
Yeah, and they all have their different excuses. But it's like you're right. But it opened the door to because it would have. If the Beatles were there, it would have overshadowed it.
Like if the Beatles or the Stones would play there, I don't think the Dead would have showed up and played because it would turn into this completely marketed.
They didn't even want to be in the movie.
Yeah, this completely over marketed thing. You know, it would have been something.
It would have been something different.
Yeah,
yeah. And I thought it was interesting. They wanted to do another one the next year, and the town of Monterey was like, no.
Oh,
Thanks for coming, but see ya.
Yeah, which was weird because also like not a single person got arrested, nobody died. You know, like it was a relatively for that many people, like it was there were no problems.
Maybe it was like the afterlash. Maybe like, oh, Monterey's a happening city, like for the hippie movement.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So everybody
Small
starts
town,
flocking into that, and just like, holy shit, we have a mess down here.
Yeah.
Well, you know, then you get to Woodstock. Now, the town of Woodstock totally embraced it.
Not at first,
but as it going on that day, like those days, people are like, "No, they're just kids. I got to feed these kids."
Yeah, but after Woodstock, they're like, "Never fucking do this again."
Yeah, because it completely
it was
over.
a fucking
disaster. Like it
disaster.
It wasn't a disaster.
It
like
was.
It rained. People snuck in. They made a lot of money off the movie, but you know. Yeah,
this was better than Woodstock.
You think so?
I think it was
way
too.
better than Woodstock. Woodstock looked like a shit show and mud, and this looked like a nice little, Renaissance fair.
But more people showed up at Woodstock than this thing.
Yeah, because the tickets.
Yeah.
I think the success from Monterey.
Yeah.
Was going to be like, oh shit, this is going to be Woodstock's going to be the next Monterey. We have to go.
We're going to miss this. This is where Hendrix came from. Yeah.
Yeah. This show then sets the stage where other people start making music festivals.
Yeah.
Is that it? We good on Monterey?
Monterey was a great concert, a great vibe. There's some just great everything going on. I wish I was there.
Yeah. And they never did anything like that again.
I think it was a one-time thing only, just like when Woodstock tried to do it again.
But they didn't do like a 50-year anniversary or 20 years. Or
they couldn't get people to sign the thing for a movie then.
I mean, like recent, like in
there's a box set out.
Yeah, but they never tried to do like another show.
There was a 50-year anniversary show, and it was like Gary Clark Jr., Hart, Phil Lesh, and a bunch of other bands. Nora Jones all played. Jack Johnson played.
That's a great lineup.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. Yeah. I don't remember what the tickets are, but I mean, you could never do something like this again, right?
No.
Between like
you can
merch
never
tents
capture that.
and VIP packages and all that other stuff.
Completely over commercialized,
and that era is over. I mean, it's like
it's just as hard you want to copy it, to bring it back, to revise it.
And
it's
that's
over.
And I feel like a lot of with the Woodstock thing, they were supposed to do that last year or 2 years ago, and it totally flopped after '99, the one that went when they burned everything down. But they tried to do it again, but no city was signed up on it, and they tried their hardest. And you just read about it, and I thought this thing was a joke as soon as it started. Like what Ryan said, you're never going to capture that feeling again.
in the Summer of Love, man. It was like
It was so commercialized by the Summer of Love.
because you start getting
People start going to San Francisco.
the tour buses are taking you around.
Yeah,
to
So
see-
look at the hippies.
Yeah.
But,
And then
like-
you got like Robert Kennedy dies, Martin
Yeah.
Luther King dies.
The world changed, yeah.
Right. Weed and LSD turns into heroin and cocaine, and it's just, I don't know.
The whole vibe, the whole scene just died.
Yeah.
Even the Grateful Dead moved out of their house.
Yeah.
Out of Haight-Ashbury.
They got out and they moved to the country.
But then
Yeah.
you get down to that Stone show in '69.
Right.
That's what it evolved into.
Yeah.
you know.
Altamont, right?
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
the Hells
Altamont,
Angels.
yeah. Yep.
Everybody tried to copy it, but it became a disaster. Everyone was a disaster. Woodstock was a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
they always said like if that movie came out, they would have never made any
the
money.
soundtrack and the movie.
That's how they made money. Crazy.
Yeah. You know what, man? As we were doing this research, I was really enjoying it because it is like a happier time. You know,
Yeah.
the world, a lot of stuff in the world sucks.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, and I was like, just that kind of vibe. I was enjoying just like watching the people enjoying themselves, like in the documentary, like
Yeah.
just listening to the music.
It just
and,
seemed like it was a great weekend.
yeah, and just
a great
hearing
moment in time that everybody chilled out and some great music.
Yeah, and trying to put yourself in the perspective. Imagine you're seeing, like you're hearing Janis for the first time, or you're seeing, that picture of Mama Cass when the camera goes on her mouth's just agape, and she's just like,
holy shit,
just blown away. Yeah, it was like just, I just enjoyed it, man. It just felt, it's made me long for happier days.
We'll definitely get Dead tickets this summer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
We'll
listen,
go
I
visit.
really want to go to a Dead show, man. I think
Yeah.
it would be like a really
All
good
right.
time. Maybe not at Citizens Bank Park. Maybe like a more
They're
intimate
playing-
setting.
Yeah.
They're actually playing Woodstock. Like,
Let's go.
like in New York,
Bethel,
Woodstock,
New York.
Really?
Let's go.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Yeah, I really would. Because
it's on a Monday.
let's go.
Oh.
Even better.
Are we good? You want to move on to listener feedback?
Sure.
I got a little bit of listener feedback. So circling back to our episode on shock rock. So thank you to the person who sent me a picture of Seth Putnam. He was the singer for Anal Cunt. So thank you for the person who sent me a picture of this guy naked in front of a Marshall stack. He was shooting heroin with a guitar cable around his neck while a hooker was giving him oral sex.
You didn't post this on Facebook?
You
did.
showed it to me.
I didn't see
Yeah,
this. I'm
yeah.
good though. I don't need to see it.
Yeah.
And then they also sent a picture of him doing a line of cocaine off of a hooker's ass. So,
Well, who hasn't done that?
right. I mean, surprised that guy died of a heart attack in 2011. I said when we were talking about his terrible music that I deserved a Purple Heart for listening to his music, and now I've managed to hurt my eyes just as much. So, thank you for that.
We have the nicest listeners that send us the greatest stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, Keith Allen Kelly sent us a picture of one of the Prisoners of Rock and Roll stickers out in the wild he put up somewhere.
Yeah.
So I really, thank you, dude. And anybody else is putting the stickers out anywhere, we'd love to see the pictures of them up out in the wild, man. Really cool. And if you want to spread the good word with some stickers, just reach out to us, man, and we'll mail you a couple.
Totally.
So, the electric chair.
Yes.
Time for the electric chair.
We need like an intro song for the electric chair. Like, dun, dun, dun.
Okay, we can do that. The electric chair is sponsored by our really good friends at Lunacy Brewing Company. They are located at 500 West Kings Highway in Haddon Heights, New Jersey. You can check them out on social media or at lunacybrewing.com. We got to get over there one night.
Oh, yeah. They have great like trivia night, music
Until they have
night.
music trivia night, we
Yeah.
either go and kick the shit out of everybody or horribly embarrass ourselves.
They don't have a chance.
Yeah, we'll go rolling in there. So the electric chair is where we sentence a song to death because it's terrible. Ryan, it is your turn.
Wow.
I can't wait to hear this one.
Me and Bruce were hanging at Bruce's house and
With the chickens?
With the chickens, it was awesome. We were listening to some country music, and all of a sudden, the cover version of "Life Is a Highway" by Rascal Flatts came on, and I was like, you know what? The lead singer of Rascal Flatts is definitely the Smash Mouth of country music. Let's play it.
This song's been played 290 million streams on Spotify.
Yeah, it was in the Cars movie.
Yeah.
Man.
Dude, fuck this song. The original song, yes. I'll get down with that guy all
Really?
the time. Yeah, the original song is a fucking anthem.
Tom Cochran or
Yeah,
whatever.
great song. Great. But this fucking trash mouth or smash mouth fucking lead singer, he's got that dyed blonde hair.
Yeah, when you said that they're the Smash Mouth of country music, man, I almost lost my crap.
Listen to these fucking sucks.
But Tom made a lot of money off this song. Tom, whatever his name is.
Tom Cochran.
He made a lot of money because this was in that Cars movie. Like,
There's a
got that- you
lot
got
of
that-
things.
yeah.
Commercials.
Got that
Yeah.
Disney movie,
Yeah.
Disney money.
This guy,
yeah.
and they made this a huge commercial. It was
Yeah.
on like a car commercial.
Sure.
Listen to the hook. It's awful.
Kill it.
Now fucking kill it.
We sentence you to death.
Fuck you.
Not going to ride that highway all night long.
No, we're doing the world a favor.
I have to go back and put together like a list of all this stuff. We should get like a Photoshop, like a tombstone with all the songs and we keep putting them on there. It's funny.
Epic.
So that's Monterey Pop Festival, everybody. Thank you so much for checking us out. I mean, if you like what you hear, please hit the follow button on iTunes or Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere you check us out. Consider leaving us a review and tell your fellow rock and rollers about us. We'll mail them some stickers too. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. We're online at prisonersofrockandroll.com. You can also email us at prisonersofrockandroll@gmail.com. So we only play 30 seconds of the songs during the show, but if you want to hear more of the music, we have already done the work for you. So we put together a playlist of each episode on Apple Music and Spotify. They have all the songs that we talked about, as well as some stuff we couldn't get to. Huge shout out to Music Man Mike Cianci helping us put those together. A lot of the stuff, Ryan, so you put together the playlist, man. You went through like song by song.
Yeah, I went from artist to artist the way they scheduled it in Monterey. So you could start and have your own Monterey with Act 1.
Yeah, just you can go through it. I mean, a lot of the stuff isn't on Spotify, but we did what we could. Some other live versions.
I did what I could to give you the most festival experience that I can give you sitting at home.
Good stuff, and a lot of it's on YouTube, man. I said, go look at Hendrix, go watch him, go watch Janis, go watch Otis.
Watch the if you could find the documentary on any Monterey thing.
Yeah, the movie.
The movie. It's out
still
there.
Out, yep.
There's so much stuff. Enjoy it.
Really, really cool. And finally, thanks to our friends at the Pantheon Podcast Network for letting us be a part of the family. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. We got to circle up and figure out what we're going to talk about next. And we got a long list somewhere we can revisit. So
all right.
All right. We'll talk to everybody in 2 weeks.
Keep on rocking. Peace out.